The one thing I wish I knew earlier was that who you marry is not the most important decision you make. Who you have kids with is the most important decision you make because you're tied to that person forever. If you are going to have children with someone, imagine that you died, would you be comfortable with that person raising your children?
So I'm very excited that we've made time, both of you, all of us, to be able to be in a room together here on the Resource Podcast. Welcome, Brit and Josh.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So
Pleasure to be
exciting,
here.
isn't it? It's a treat. I feel like we did say that we could probably be talking for the next kind of 6 hours, but we'll keep it to like kind of, an hour. If we're lucky, we'll go 2. We'll see, because there's so much depth to both of you. So having one guest could chats McGee, I feel, but having 2 guests and the plethora of knowledge that comes with both of you. So I'm excited.
And the rambles.
Brit's deep. I'm shallow as a paddling pool.
Are you? So Brit makes you. I like that one. Maybe we'll put that on.
That's why
there.
I picked a hot wife, because I'm shallow.
Yeah. Okay. Same. Yeah. Well, I didn't pick Brit, but I see what you're saying. She's like your complimentary. Yeah. Cool.
Well, she makes me look good. Yeah.
Okay. Cool. Trophy wife.
Trophy wife.
It's been the goal.
It has.
But welcome. I'm really excited. We met through Step and Tim Success School, where you guys have been working on. You both come from different walks of life, and you've joined together through. Often, when I have people on the podcast, it's through. You've joined together or started and created something through challenge or off the back of challenge that you've had. And so first I'll ask the question, I've got you in on the podcast because what is it that you've created? What is it that you've been working on together?
So the Blended Blueprint is a coaching program for couples and blended families to basically help them build a more calm, connected home. So to stop the cycle of resentment, to reconnect as a couple, to give themselves permission to put themselves and their relationship first. And because of that, everything else within their blended family will become easier, pretty much.
Yep.
And that comes from the challenges that you guys have faced in what you've seen. Like we were saying, a lot of the time it gets created from a gap, which you wished you'd kind of had. So I'd love to know, we'll go back. It's good to know what you are working on and how the context when you're sharing your story. But so where did it come from? I'll ask you first, Josh. What was it that, what did Josh look like? What was life looking like for Josh pre-Brit? Blended, all of those kind of things. I'd love to know a little bit of background because you both, like I said, come with so much, depth as humans, but also, I get along with you really well, and usually that's because people have been through it. So, I would love to hear, who was Josh before? Big question.
There's a big question. I mean, after all, most people, by the time you get to our age, your life is trauma-driven in some way, shape or form.
Yeah. Trauma bonded.
Trauma bonded, whether it's self-inflicted or circumstances beyond your control, it's not really relevant to your circumstance. So for me, before I met Brit, it was post-divorce, so 2.5 years by myself, basically, working on myself, trying to, be that better man or become the person I wanted to be so that I could have a relationship that I wanted to be in. And it takes a lot of time when you've come out of a divorce to realise the non-negotiables, what you do and what you don't want. So I just spent a lot of time working through that, doing a lot of journaling, really, a lot of soul searching, spending a lot of time alone as much as possible, and then working through basically a list of things that I did and didn't want in the next phase of my life. Being 35 with 2 kids, divorced, my immediate thought was, well, who's going to want me, sort of thing. And that's probably everybody's thought, I guess, when they have kids and they get divorced. So I spent a lot of time working through that, trying to work out what do I actually want and set the bar higher for myself, so that I guess you can live a life where you feel fulfilled and happy in your relationship. I had no idea what that would look like. I probably even internally set some rules for myself that I probably don't want a person with more than one child because 2 of my own's complicated enough.
Yeah.
And then Brit had 2, so that is what it is.
Yeah.
And decided to have another one between us. Which,
So you got 5 total.
Yeah, 5 total. Complicated it, I guess. Made our life that was more easy and more difficult.
Yeah.
Because we like doing that.
Yeah. You both like a challenge. I feel like you're both not challenge driven, but you're give me something to work towards. So I think that's what I've learned.
Project.
Yeah.
There's always a project. Brit loves a project.
Well, we were even
absolutely.
laughing about,
Yeah.
you know, what you see each day with the calls that you're on, with the people that book in. You're constantly seeing new things that you can learn. And so, like, even last night you worked on something new as well to add to the program as well. So I love that you're open to that, you know, you've had your experiences, but there's also things to learn from.
Yeah. It's like a normal relationship. They're so complex. Everyone's is different. If you add in now a divorced couple that are coming together, you've now got, you know, four people that are in some way, shape or form having some influence in some way over that relationship. So the complexities, once you add kids in, is just the logistical nightmare that it is between multiple homes. It's different in every house. It's different. What the relationship like with their ex can have a huge determination on the functioning of their life.
Yeah. So. I have no doubt, because people are very interesting. Like it, in the world, we're all so different, 100%. Then, like you say, add the complexity of a partner, no kids, within a family structure, interesting. Then you add the kids who all come with their own personalities. And then I find that even people have different personalities with different people as well. You know, so it's like there's complexities and nuances on top of everything and shaping that. And I feel like that's what I love about what you guys have created is understanding that, but having a foundation. And we'll talk about that later on what that looks like and how you've come to that kind of understanding with it. But I love what you touched on where you wanted to be a better man, and the stories that you were painting for yourself being, you know, like out of a marriage, out of it, you know, in a divorce, having the kids that come, and it makes it difficult to meet somebody. Do you feel like to some extent you were more open-minded to meet somebody because you thought it might not necessarily happen?
No, not necessarily. I was always going to be open-minded to meeting somebody, simply because I always saw my life from a very young age as being in that family environment. I come from a large family myself. I'm the youngest of 4 kids. My parents are still together. So, you know, you've always got that thoughts in that safe environment. That's what I want for my family. So, yeah, no, I never really thought in that process. I think I more just thought along the lines of what do I want and what don't I want? Because if I'm going to make some you know, compromises around that person, then is that really what I want to do?
Yeah.
I don't think that would have just led me back down the same path.
Yeah. And so what job were you doing previous? Because you've got a lot to you when it comes to even the work that
I've done a lot of different things.
Yep. So what had you done previous to that? What did Josh's like kind of work or what's the word that I'm looking for? Professional kind of background and understanding look like?
Yeah, so
going into your
10 years as a high school teacher, so I'm educator trained. Don't hate me if you don't like school teachers.
Oh, my dad and my sister are both teachers, so love their necessity.
Yeah, so I did 10 years of that, and I did 7 years total of real estate sales and business development. And then after that, which was post-divorce, I left that and sold swimming pools briefly. Which was a really good job. But COVID hit and I decided to get a nice little safe government job. And it was the second time applying to WA Police and I was accepted. So I went down that path of policing. Obviously I do different things since then, but yeah, that was my path prior to meeting Brit.
Yeah, awesome. And that's where you ended up kind of meeting. But again, previous to meeting, there was so much to Brit and like who you were. And I love your story as well in, you know, I love hearing about what has shaped somebody as a human, and, you know, your parenting style and your, you know, like seeing how actually rock solid you are in your like planning and your prep and the work that you do that I get to see behind the scenes because of the program that we're in. And I feel like it's accelerated a little bit getting to know you both, because to see how driven you both are, not only to help yourselves in relationship, but so passionate to help other people. And that often comes, like we said, from challenge and also from necessity. So I'd love, Brit, what's your, like what painted that for you in wanting to help people, and like who was Brit pre, you know, Josh, pre entering into creating the blended?
So pre-Josh, I was already in the police for probably 8 years by that point. I had just come out of a marriage. I had 2 little girls. I think they were aged 4 and about 22 months-ish at that time. And yeah, basically my whole adult life at that point was policing. I joined the police when I was 18 as a police cadet, and all the way up until that point, that's all I kind of knew. I was married to a cop at the time, and I hung out with cops, and it was very police-oriented. Prior to that, I just did some odd jobs sort of out of school, but I'm also the eldest daughter, so a lot of responsibility was put on me very early in my childhood, and I pretty much took that role and ran with it, like just the typical eldest sibling. So I felt a lot of obligation to my younger siblings and to my mum. My parents had split up due to alcoholism when I was about 13, so I really took on that second parent role, and I think that's just sort of who I am, really. So moving now into, obviously I went into the police, and now I'm in helping couples. I think helping and coaching is just sort of who I am as a person. It's always wanting to, help people better themselves, and always bettering myself and bettering us. And there's always a lot of personal development and growth, and we like to sort of put that onto other people, help people be the best that they can be.
Yeah, building the program's definitely helped us as a couple as well.
Yeah.
Because it's a lot of internal work when you start coaching people, you want to make sure you're doing the right thing.
Yeah. It's integrity, isn't it?
Yeah, it's an integrity thing. It's probably the imposter syndrome aspect to that as well. Like, who are we to do this?
Yeah.
So yeah, it has definitely helped our relationship, because it's started to put into words and put into a structure what we actually do that works.
Yeah.
And why. Rather than just, this works, this is what we're doing. It's now structured.
Yeah.
And it's forced us to grow a lot as people.
We're in each other's pocket all day, every day.
Yeah.
Working next to each other. So that's the biggest testing thing for a relationship, is when you start to work together.
Yeah.
We'd already done that, obviously, policing. We'd worked in the same car on the same shifts, and we worked really well together. So that wasn't really an obstacle that we thought would even be a thing, but the closer we are, the more tiffs you have, I guess, at times. But it's over our passion, I guess, of the business and helping people.
Yeah.
It's having that desire as well. And it's always like, whenever I'm speaking to people, it is that, from what life has given you, or like smashed into you, or, like the fuckery that people have been through often is what shaped the desire to help people. And it's like that maternal, like wanting to help people the way that you do. And it makes sense. When you shared that with me the first time with, like what your upbringing and how you naturally shifted into, like looking after your siblings and things like that, it, being a mother to kids, very different to being a parent style or parent type to your siblings. And then also what it gets to be for what you're creating now is you get to be that for parents, and you understand their kids and kind of all different levels, Because I can imagine, what are the most common things, I suppose, that people come to you with when it comes to challenges with blended families that resonate with the challenges that you faced as a couple, but things that you're like, oh, okay, that's a new one, or it's something that not you haven't thought of, it applies to what you're actually teaching, but every family is different, right?
A lot of things have been coming up. We have a lot of people in our DMs, especially recently, and a lot of, I guess, common themes has been, carrier,
the carrier mentality, I guess.
Yeah.
Carrying the relationship.
Basically the person, one person is being sort of lumped with all of the logistics, the childcare, the discipline, the
parenting, basically.
The buffering between, the exes, and the other person is kind of coping by shutting down and withdrawing and disengaging and things like that. And they're both trying to do their best, and I think they both know that, but the resentment is building because of that. And the other person is almost too fearful to
address it
and help where they need to be helping.
Yeah. At the end of the day, there's no support out there for a healthy way of addressing it. there's no, if you go look for blended family support, that sort of thing, if you're going to get that support, it's not often from people who've been in a blended family.
Yeah.
It's the psychology stuff, it's the counselling, that sort of thing, which is, not what we are. We're not counsellors. So yeah, that's the lack of support that we noticed. It's probably the big gap in the market for us was, we're doing this by ourselves, we're building this by ourselves, feel like we're doing quite well. But we're not going to compare it to because where's the benchmark?
Yeah.
There's no studies, there's no benchmark.
Yeah.
There's very little studies in benchmark.
Yeah.
The only study that we kind of know of is that second marriages are 70% fail rate. So,
Really?
It's not a healthy statistic.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to have a divorce, so people certainly don't want to have two.
Yeah.
Especially when there's kids from multiple families involved.
Yeah. And what do you find the advice that you are giving to them when it comes to did you ever feel that in your marriage, or was that quite not foreign? And maybe one of you felt that a little bit, but not to the extent of where it was like there might have always been equalness between you guys. What is it like the first thing that people can do when they are met with that? Because that is it's a hard conversation to start.
The hardest thing for a lot of people, and maybe we sort of benefited from our backgrounds with this in particular, but communication. A lot of people don't have good communication skills, and you would think that you would be able to communicate with the person that you're living with, who you love, who you're building a life with, but people just can't, I guess, say what they mean in a way that the other person isn't going to get defensive. And I think that's probably one of the biggest issues, but also probably one of the easiest things to address. Because it's just a matter of giving people some communication skills and practicing on it. And it's also, for the other person, learning to take feedback without taking it as an attack.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and obviously you see it in normal relationships where people have an argument in their relationship and one's always trying to win. And I've always had that in my mindset of, I don't know where I heard it from, but if you're going to win, the other person's going to lose. Then that's not healthy because one person's going to resent it. If you're the person that needs to win the argument in that relationship, you're not working as a team. The same goes for blended families. It's not a healthy dynamic in your relationship. That's always going to end in resentment. It's always going to end in problems and worse.
Yeah, the goal isn't to win.
The goal's not to win. The goal is to agree or have a game plan that you can work on together.
Yeah, that's really true. I like that saying, and I like what you're talking about, how like you pulled from, and as we do, we pull from life experiences, and you talked about the job that you'd had previously. You would have seen in the police, which is where you met, you would have seen some shit. Yeah. And you're in a relationship with your work colleagues in essence, because as in the police, you're next to someone often, you're in a team, you see some of the most traumatic things that happen in the world. Mm-hmm. You often, I've heard previously that you don't get, like the debrief or the I suppose, trauma talk as much as you could or should, because it's a part of your job and you're part of your job role. So where were some of I know that there were challenges that you've had within work there. Can you go into a little bit more detail of like some of the most challenging times that you had within the police, and then how you were able to resonate and come together from that in a little bit more depth?
Yeah, I think for me personally, I had quite the ride during my career. Some of the toughest things, I think, it's very tough being a female in a very male-dominated workplace. And it's such a huge range in age. So a lot of the higher bosses are older men who policed very differently 20, 30 years ago. Yeah. And trying to deal with that, because I get along with men quite well. I probably get along with men more than I get along with most women. But a lot of people are just stuck in their ways. Mm-hmm. So I found that more often than not, it was very much like a cowboy kind of scenario. And it was very easy to fall into, I guess, a trap where you ended up getting bullied or
kept in your box.
That's probably a better way to put it. Kept in your box. If you stood up for yourself at all, and that's what happened to me a few times, standing up for yourself, especially as a female, wasn't received well. And I think there's a lot of things as well that if you did something as a female, you would be remembered for it. But if you did the same thing as a male, you probably get promoted for it. And that theme probably was seen a lot. So for me, the challenge is I went through quite a bit of bullying within my 10 years, and things that just sort of followed you sort of station to station, because the same bosses continue to move around, and those bosses speak to the next boss, and then you're there's always this shadow. And then becoming a parent and a mum, again, is different than being a dad. And there's sort of no space, I don't think, for that in the police. Like they claim, or they like to project this blue family persona, but it's not. It's a nice.
It's values
thought.
on a wall kind of thing. And
it's a nice thought.
Yeah.
And it'd be great in theory, but it's not there. And it's very hard to be, I think, a parent in that space, because they don't care, essentially. Like, it's operational requirements, you know. And we found that particularly difficult after my ex-husband and I split, that suddenly we needed to share the kids, and you know, we obviously both wanted 50-50 custody, and the girls are very young, and it was just like, well, too bad, figure it out. Like,
You've got
that has nothing
work.
to do with us. We need you at work, like operational requirements. And I'm like, yeah, cool, but can we have some time to figure this out? Like, can I have a day shift position? That way I can at least have, you know, the girls, and I can at least put them in daycare for the week that I have to work, and, you know, whatever.
School drop-offs.
School
and
drop-offs.
pickups
And it was like, nah, like, there isn't any. You're in tenure. And I'm like, well, like, can I break tenure? So that was a bit of a shuffle for a while. And obviously when you first split with someone, there's a lot of tension there. And the flexibility that we now have wasn't there at the time.
Yeah.
So, that was probably one of the biggest challenges. And because of that, it caused more problems with bosses already not liking you, because now you're causing them problems, and you know, potentially not showing up to work, or you're having to call in sick, or whatever the case might be, or taking carers leave because your child's sick. And they're like, oh, you're not at work again, you know? So, yeah, that ended up causing quite a few problems. And that was probably around the time that we met, or within the year probably that we met. And after, I think, 10 years of constant, like, battling, and avoiding any sort of mental health labels, as you do in a job like that, because if you admit that you've got something going on, anxiety, depression, anything like that, then that affects your job. You know, suddenly they're like, oh, are you suitable to have a firearm, or can you show up to work? And you know, so
even though probably likely everybody does, from what I hear, of course, because you're human beings in the job, and that I think is the most. And you're not. It's a tough job because you're not liked by everybody. You're often met, you know, like I can imagine. I've seen it before, like being spat on, being yelled at, being like, you know. Sorry to go back into trauma, but it's like, you know, violence and stuff like that that you face when you've gone into the job to help people.
Yeah.
And so I can only imagine as well, because it's like you can't show any signs of like perceived weakness or say that anything's wrong, because then, but actually everybody's going through it.
It'd be a problem if there wasn't something wrong.
Yeah, that's what is it? Is it you have to go through, like, if you're not a veteran, but you get asked the question of like whether you would jump off a building, and if somebody says no, they know they're lying, because everybody has thought about it, like, or have seen. And so if you say no, you're lying, because it's a human thing. You see a high building, we've all thought about what might do.
What would happen if I jumped?
Yeah, what would happen?
The intrusive thoughts.
Yeah, intrusive thoughts. It makes you a human. If you haven't thought of that, like, what's going on? But I can imagine, like, through all that challenge, like anything in the world, you know, in those workplace environments, it's very frustrating when you're trying to show up to do your job, and you're literally the best resolve for you would for all of that to disappear and so you could just go and do your job. And often the only people who understand that are people who are also experiencing that. And so I can imagine that maybe that's what, like conversations that were started, and if you're already navigating challenge and things like that. So I cut you off from what you were sharing before, but keep going with, how you came together in those moments.
Yeah, so, you have your own things to deal with within your personal life. You're obviously going to work every day, dealing with everyone else's worst day of their life, and trying to, deal with them, their circumstances in the best way that you can. And eventually it starts to take a toll. And I had eventually got a day shift position that suited my custody arrangement. And we went surfing. That was it. So
one of Brittany's ideas and projects was let's learn to
So
surf.
because
So
so
we did a
much-
surfing lesson.
I wanna
And
learn
down
something new.
the spiral from there is
So-
incredible.
it was quite the spiral.
Please tell me
So
more. Tell
what
me more.
happened was, because so much was going on during that time, I thought it'd be really good for our mental health to go and try new things, right? To get outside. We had wetsuits. We were doing surfing lessons
It's
and all
freezing.
these things.
It was like July.
It was not. It
No,
was
it wasn't
like
July,
it was
but it was-
January
It wasn't.
or something.
It wasn't more.
Anyway, so yes, so we went surfing, had a surf lesson, and Secret Harbor Beach has this sandbar. It's like this notorious sandbar where people always get injured. Anyway, I came off the surfboard, my foot hit the sandbar, and having this really sore foot, and I had to go get an x-ray for it. And the doctor basically said, you have to wait for your results to come back. So in the meantime, I suggest that you have a few days off of work until I can get the results to make sure, obviously,
Nothing's
that
broken.
you're not running around policing with a broken foot.
And you're like, I can't even get fucking days off when I've got children. Like,
Right? So, and the team that I was on for this day shift position was just me and one other guy. So we were just serving restraining orders and things like that. And I ended up having to call in saying, yep, this is what the doctor said. And I spoke to another supervisor who wasn't the big boss, who didn't like me. And he was like, yep, no problem, sign you off. And then maybe the following day, I get a call from the big boss saying, what's going on? And I said, this is what the doctor said. He signed me off for X amount of days. And he's like, well, basically that's not good enough. When you come back to work on Monday, whatever day it was, we need to have a chat about your position on this team. And knowing what he was like, that was basically a lineup for, we're pulling you off of this team, pretty much. So I basically spiraled.
Yeah, that basically meant Brit would have had to go back to shift work, which how would she manage the custody arrangement?
yeah, he's setting you up to fail in essence.
100%.
And he's trying to, and getting away with it because the environment allows it, and it's been done before, and it likely potentially happened within his, like no excuses for it, but it's a spiral of everything happening, and it's like, how can I make her quit?
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Yeah. So basically I spiraled because I was like, well, I can't lose this position. What am I going to do with the kids? Blah, 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 blah. And my anxiety just went through the roof because this was maybe like Thursday or something. And I was like, now I've got the next 4 days to think about this meeting that I have to walk into where he's not going to be very nice and I'm going to lose my position. So I think that was the first time that I really let the
Let it
mental
You let it
yeah.
Yeah, you've been very strong, very
It
tough
got
to
on
pull
top
out.
of you.
It definitely
because you
did,
were
yeah.
being pushed to.
Yeah, like I'm a very strong person, and I always I would never label myself, and I would never admit I'm just like I just get on with it. But that was the first time that I really let
It was a
come
culture
out.
shock for me because I knew Brittany up until that point as this super strong, tough eldest daughter, doesn't put up with shit,
Yeah,
and will, go through anything.
yeah,
Because I already knew her backstory from our life from then, with alcohol, dad, and all that sort of stuff.
yeah. But I broke.
And she broke, and it was very scary,
Yeah.
Yeah.
to say the least, for me.
Yeah.
So I broke. I ended up speaking to you, and I think maybe you were at work that day.
Possibly.
I think
remember
either
coming
Josh was at
home.
home or Josh was at work. Regardless, I ended up speaking to him and being like, "What do I do?" Like, and he ended up speaking to maybe one of his supervisors, who had basically advised that I ring the police, like on-call psychologist, tell them what's going on, and get them to sign me off for the mental health side of things, and then work out a plan from there. So I really had to like let go of my pride in that moment, because it was really just not something that I wanted to do. I didn't want to be the person who have to ring the police psychologist. So I did it. She ended up signing me off. She was actually really nice. And
Which is a misconception too, that you think they're not going to, and it's been painted in that picture in your mind that it's not good that you do that, when probably now in personal development and having these conversations, it's preemptive. Like the people, you go to those people when you're doing well, not when you break.
Yeah.
And had you been given that support by a workplace.
Yeah, I think that's probably the main issue about you breaking is, you're going to speak to this psychologist whose job is to look after your health, but there's a consequence attached to that when that person does, and that consequence comes back on you when you're at work and when you return, whenever you return to work. How are you going to be painted?
Which is, of course, why you would 100% be scared.
And not only that, but making the call, yes, it's, you presume that's going to be confidential, but they also work for the police.
Yeah.
So at what point do they have, the reporting duties to have to tell my boss that I'm not fit for duty, and what am I going to return to?
Yeah.
Like
the conversations are obviously confidential, but the results not, because they have to report. She's signed off 2 weeks.
And then also that communication between the psychologist and the leaders is supposed to be confidential. I understand that to go back to the result, but it's not going to be because of the environment that you've been in. I know the story that is horrible, and I'm so sorry that you went through that, because it's like, for lack of a better word, fucked that you have to experience that, and that for the most part you probably felt quite alone in it. And now there's, even with the work that you do within mining, it's like it could not happen, still does, but you're pushed and pushed and pushed and pushed and pushed and pushed. Of course you are going to break in those. And then there's stigma that exists by actually reaching out for help, because you've seen it before, and then people have now seen what happened when you reached out for help. So, and then it continues and it keeps on going.
It's a cycle.
But what is interesting about it, and thank you, is that somebody would have watched that where you are now, and that actually getting out of that environment. I know, keep sharing with me what happened then. The impact that you've made from reaching out for help was fucking uncomfortable. And then here we get to be, and I get to have you on the podcast.
Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, like that the start of that part of the story is the best thing that could have happened to us.
Yeah, hindsight's always best.
In hindsight. Because that was the start to the end, really. It was the thing that got the
ball rolling
for us to leave, because we're so, like, that's all I knew, that was my whole identity. And I didn't leave the job. I don't even think I had a resume when I left, because
I wrote it.
Yeah, so
After.
And I think that's a thing that a lot of police officers have the issue with, is that like, so many would love to leave, I'm sure. Well, we know because we have
people
contact a lot.
Consistently.
But the question is always, what would I even do? Like, what skills do I have? What who's going to want to hire me? And I don't have this qualification. That was just all the same stories that we had. I had no idea.
Yeah, and it kind of leads back into, a lot of people don't leave until it's gotten bad enough for them to make the move, and by that time they are potentially quite broken.
Yeah,
and I'll have a lot of police officers probably scoff at me because I only did the job for 3 years, but I also have the context of working in multiple different environments to realise that this is not normal.
Yeah,
and this is not how a functioning workplace treats their staff.
Yeah.
So I have hindsight and context, whereas a lot of cops have only ever been cops.
Yeah.
So that's just all they know. And
Yeah.
it's, well, this is just how it is. Which is in itself unhealthy.
Yeah.
Unhealthy for sure. So then they just don't leave until they've really reached a breaking point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that sucks.
And then how do you move on when you're at a breaking point?
Yeah.
How do you go find something else and start a new career when you're already struggling with?
Yeah.
Yeah. How do you go for an interview when you have no confidence?
Yeah. And not even no confidence. So there's so much mental health in my family, around my friends. And when you say break, like it's you feel like there's nowhere for you to go. If you don't have the support network around you or people that you can talk to, or actually, quite honestly, even if you do, it's so foreign to all of us to have that break, because it's been something that we've tried to avoid our whole life. Or maybe you've seen it in a friend or a family member, and you're like, which was my experience, I'd seen it and I was like, fuck, I'm not getting to that point. So it was even more stigma in the family. You know that there's a potential and you don't want to get to that point. But often it's where, like you said, getting to the lowest point of where you're afraid, you feel alone, and you're just like, you're broken, is what's that? The only way is up, baby. That's the only way is up. From that point, and it's a long road. So, how then did you? Was there anything else that kind of helped shape that part, and then where did you go from there?
Yeah, so about 6 weeks after that initial phone call where I got signed off, I ended up, within that time, I ended up seeing a private psych and continuing to get signed off. So I needed a new
Every 2 weeks.
Every 2 weeks, I needed a new medical certificate. And about 6 weeks in, I ended up getting a phone call from the boss, who wasn't meant to contact me. He was told not to contact me, from Health and Welfare.
Of course he contacted you.
Of course he did.
I was there for that conversation.
Yeah, so
it was on speakerphone.
He ended up calling me, and I put it on speaker. And he was basically trying to prod me for more information as to why I was off. And I said, I don't have to tell you why I'm off. My medical certificate says that I'm unfit for duty. That's all you need to know. And he said, well, I'm the boss of this station. I need to know what's going on with my staff, blah, 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 blah. And he just kept pushing. So I ended up giving him a little bit, basically saying that I'm off for my mental health. And I don't know when I'm going to be back. We'll see as I work through this. And his response to that was, I'm running a police station, not a rehabilitation center. So you need to sort yourself out, or basically get out of my station. And we basically left it at that. And we ended up contacting, I think it was Health and Welfare, whoever it was, my liaison, and notifying them of that phone call. And he was, I think, spoken to again in a more firm manner. And we never heard from him again, I don't think.
No.
But I think for me, that was probably the turning point for me, where I realized, you know what? You guys have done this to me, and you're going to pay to fix it, pretty much. So I just continued to get medical certificate after medical certificate after medical certificate for a year.
About that.
Yeah, so I was on sick leave, mental health leave, for a year. In that time, I ended up getting pregnant with our youngest daughter, and for a little while, I was protected because I was unfit for duty. I wasn't allowed to be contacted other than from the mental health liaison person. And she was great while we had her. But the issue with, I guess, again, the police being a law unto themselves, is that no one knows the real answer around not crim comp. What's the other compensation?
Workers' compensation.
Workers' compensation.
There wasn't workers' compensation for police at the time.
Yeah, but
Really? When was this?
2022.
I believe it came in January 23, the workers' comp.
Not that long ago. So there's no workers' compensation for police.
There is now, but it's different to standard workers' compensation
That
legislation.
is wild. Because
Well,
also
guess who gets to make the decision as to whether you are allowed to have workers' compensation?
your boss who's
The
likely.
police.
Yeah.
Whoever
So
the
it's
system
just-
structure is within that makes that decision.
And it's been able to be that way. And the reason why I ask you this and like to go into it is I find it, it's so informative, because there's a lot of workplaces that mirror that, but have had to progress through laws, but then because of the police, it is a law in to itself.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you can fact check me on that, but that's my understanding from.
It was I think it was unclear for us at that time because
Brit was one of the first people that are kind of going through this process.
Yeah.
You can make a change.
Yeah.
And at the time when we spoke to police union, their long-term internal lawyer was retiring during that process, so they didn't have one.
Yeah, so there was no one that was ever really solid in that
The
year for us.
legislation,
We
what it
had
meant.
the initial liaison lady, and she was fantastic. She was doing everything to try to help us, and she was basically like pushing us down the road to medical retirement. And that was basically like not locked in, but it was like more or less like, yep, this is going to happen for you. And so that's what we're riding on for most of it.
And it's a very long process.
And it was a
do
long
that,
process.
which we had no idea about. Nobody knew about. Nobody could give us advice about.
Yeah, she
Nobody
wasn't completely
knows.
clear on it. She's looking at the legislation as well.
She's external, so she's an external consultant for another company. She, is trying to communicate to WAPOL and no idea who she's communicating with, and nobody can give answers. So we're just floating in the dark, basically.
They didn't know and we didn't know. And then sort of out of nowhere, she just went poof. And she just left. She
left that company and went and worked elsewhere.
Yeah. So everybody
Then we didn't have a new person.
Yeah.
We didn't have a solid person, no. So so that was just that. And we're just constantly looking for answers. And then Josh was doing all the communication because I was in such a state for that entire year that I couldn't answer the phone. I couldn't answer my front door. I couldn't go out by myself because I was too worried that I would run into someone from work.
And that's not necessarily because of Brit. That's just I was still at work, so I'm still hearing at the workplace, oh, she's off because she's faking it. She's this, all these internal rumours from who are supposedly your blue family being suspicious around this, whilst I'm at home dealing with the actual issue that's going on and a broken partner who can barely get out of bed, whilst I've got to work with these people who are, saying things about your partner that are completely untrue because, there's clearly no understanding of, mental health for a lot of them. And everybody wants to throw you under the bus rather than support you. It's certainly something we found out very, many friends, not many friends.
Yeah, pretty much from that time that
No
I
one to
went
trust.
off, we weren't contacted by a single friend from the police pretty much for that entire year. There might have been one or two, and they weren't people that I worked with directly. But considering you worked somewhere for 10 years, you would think that, you'd have a few more people giving a shit.
There obviously was some, but there was very
reached
few
out
and
because
few
you were
between.
in the the stigma that's attached to struggling at all, and the stigma that's attached to anything that happens within the workplace and the black mark that gets on your name, and then also being a friend of that person or taking sides, and then you're part of a workplace that you want to see change, but God damn if I'm going to speak up because I
That's
then
why
will
nobody
get
speaks up.
treated the same, hey?
That's why nobody speaks up.
And you're going to get treated the same way, and you're seeing it firsthand of like, holy crap, that is unacceptable, but what am I going to do? Not to excuse people's behaviour or not speaking up, but it's just like a vicious cycle going around and around. And so naturally you're going to be drawn together in that it's going to make you break you or make you stronger, right? It's like those two options.
And look, and I had zero option other than to be everything that Brit couldn't be at the time because I'd only known her briefly and she was this strong woman, and then all of a sudden that was gone.
Yeah.
What am I going to do? Just I'll leave and good luck. I loved this person, so I wasn't just going to be that.
I was also pregnant with your child.
You're also pregnant with my child at some point.
Maybe a real
after
dick.
that.
But it happens. It freaking
Oh, it
happens.
definitely does.
Like,
But it's more of a case of, like that from what Brit said already so far is not even close to the worst of it. It's up. I always leave this up to Brit as to how much she wants to share because it's more her story. I've got my story around it in terms of being the protector and having to deal with all the conversations and interviews and all sorts of stuff internally. But it's Brit's story to tell, not mine.
Yeah.
Well, I'll leave it up to you, and then if there's, like, to share, because it's, like you said, your story, but then also hearing it, because when we're speaking about this, I know it's going to resonate with people, and maybe not to the extent of what you've been through, but supporting someone through one of the biggest challenges, the biggest challenge of their life, and sticking around, because people don't.
Yeah.
That's also the reality.
Yeah. Well, I ended up, as part of the process, I ended up having to meet with the police appointed psychiatrist. And that meeting pretty much, that was really hard as well, because
I went as your sports person and she wouldn't let me in.
yeah, so Josh came as my support person. He wasn't allowed in. I ended up I had to go into a police building, which was a huge trigger for everything that was going
relive
on,
your
right?
trauma.
Right.
So a psychiatrist got you to come and do that.
At a police building, that you've worked for. Yeah, so yeah. Yep.
Yeah, very good on the psychosocial hazards.
And then Josh wasn't allowed in.
We'll talk about psychosocial because it's like ding, ding, ding. Holy shit.
Yeah. So instead of really asking me anything about what was actually going on at that time, a lot of the questions were framed around my childhood, my alcoholic dad, moving here from the US as a kid, just things that could paint the picture that my mental health came from somewhere else. My mental health issue, came from something else. And I think as soon as I came out and I said that to Josh, I was like, that's where this is going to go. And lo and behold, go a few months later on, and that was basically what they said, that my depression, my anxiety, my PTSD was stemmed prior to joining.
Even though you do a psychological assessment before you join.
Mind you, as I said before, I was a police cadet, and then I went into recruit. So I had done 3 psych tests, 3 psych meetings prior to joining the police. I was the dux of my squad. Like, I had 0 issues all the way up until that point. But that was exactly how it was painted. Because, of course, the police can't do that to someone. Like, why would they do that? So that basically took any potential medical retirement off the table. And the union pretty much said, oh, yeah, you can appeal it, but you're going to be asked to go up on the stand in court and in the state that you're currently in. We don't think that's a good idea for you. And you're going to have to prove the police psych wrong. I'm like, how are we going to do that? They're like, basically you can't.
Had you recorded any of the experiences that you'd had, or was it hindsight that made you see things for what they were more so?
You mean prior to?
Yeah, like because also that being in the police and it happening every day, you don't record it because it's life.
Yeah. Yeah, you don't associate it with necessarily bullying or whatever it is at the time.
Yeah.
This is from my experience, from what I see from other people, because I didn't experience bullying. But people experience in a way where this is how the job is.
Yeah.
This is what my boss is like.
Mm-hmm.
And my job is to get out on the road.
Mm-hmm. And so then if the leadership are putting you in that position, then how? It's already been painted. And, yeah, that would make me absolutely break. I think that would make the strongest person in the entire freaking planet break.
Yeah.
And everyone around them, because also you'd feel helpless and hopeless in being able to try and help as well. And like the kind of trying to bring up, how old was your youngest at that point?
So she wasn't born yet. So I was pregnant with her at the time, and all of this stress. As well. Yeah, so all this stress ended up causing quite a few issues with my pregnancy, where she wasn't growing as she should have been. So she was quite small. Mm-hmm. So I was having weekly or fortnightly appointments at Fiona Stanley to constantly have her monitored. And then sort of closer to the end of my pregnancy, the police psych ended up signing me off as fit for duty without us knowing. And despite my private psychologist, who we saw regularly, weekly or fortnightly, continuing to sign me off and not seeing the police psych for God knows how long.
We only saw her once.
We only saw her once, and maybe a phone call. And she ended up signing me off. And little did we know that in the background, the police were trying to put together an investigation against us basically to try to get rid of us. They're looking for anything.
More so you than me, but
Of course, like that's no surprise.
Yeah.
That's not a surprise
it
because
comes
you're
from, there's a few factors there, like even going back to the boss ringing you that time, one of his comments was about, well, why are you going on holiday to Rottnest? Like, Brit's off on mental health leave. The doctor says, get out and do things. So we took the kids to Rottnest for the day, and then it's on social media. So, there's nothing wrong with you.
what do you want me to do?
So, this perception of you're mentally unwell, so you should sit at home and cry is the exact opposite of what you're supposed to do to treat yourself and feel better. And then you get shamed for going out and doing that because you post a photo on Instagram.
Yeah, and then the police also said I need to get out into the world and be more social. What do you like doing? And I said, well, previously I did photography. She's like, okay, cool, go out and do that. So I was like, okay. So then I started doing that, previously having like a little photography business. I just continued doing that. A few friends asked me to do their shoots for them. I intended to do them for free. They, out of like the kindness of their heart, said, I don't want you doing this for free. Here's, $100 or whatever, just for your time kind of thing. And later down the track, as part of this investigation I was telling you about, they basically tried to get me for having unimproved secondary employment. And it was like an avoidance of duty.
Breach of duty or something like along those lines.
Basically I can't, their mindset was, well, if you can't show up for work as a police officer, how can you go and be a photographer? And it was like,
they really didn't like you.
Not quite the same job.
It actually doesn't matter.
It wasn't even a job.
It wasn't even a job. It was a hobby. And the worst thing about it was this was all documented with the doctors and psychologists at our end in terms of what do you do? Okay, so go out and do some photography because that makes you feel good. Go on holiday or whatever, not holiday, but go to Rottnest and do whatever to make yourself feel better. So at our end, it's all documented. It's on doctor's certificates to say it's recommended she does this. Those obviously aren't shared with WA Police because it's a privacy issue. So their interpretation of the issue is you're avoiding duty. You're basically a piece of shit, and we want to get rid of you.
Well, it goes back to miscommunication, right? And also perception. If somebody is a good leader, they're a part of a good organisation, or let's say part of a relationship where you love each other and where you think the best of each other. So say your employer was like, Brit has been a great worker. We really enjoy having her and we want her to get better. Seeing you go to Rottnest, the perception would be great to see that she's doing well. But when you've got a workplace that doesn't like you, doesn't want to see you do well, it reflects badly on them. Anything that you're going to do, you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't,
100%.
No matter what you did.
In previous years to that, I had a different boss have a crack at me for going to the gym on a day that I was like a mental health thing, mental health rest day or whatever it was, after like quite a shitty accident or a job that we had attended. I wasn't going to my shift for that day, but I was in the gym, and he was like, well, why are you in the gym? Like, it doesn't look good. And I was like,
it doesn't look good that you're a cop and you're exercising because you've taken your assigned day off because you just attended a car accident where somebody died yesterday.
Where do you think that, so being in the institution for a while, being a human in the world, where do you think that's been shaped from, and what did it look like previously for where has that stigma been shaped from in the world that isn't good, in your opinion? Trying to help yourself and go to the gym.
Oh, look, it comes down, it really just stems from their operational requirements about you being on the front line is the be all and end all. It's your family's not number one. I may say that publicly, I don't know, but internally it's definitely, if you have to have a day off because of your kids, or you have to adjust your shift because, you've got these things going on that, other workplaces will be like, all right, we can work around that. Mm-hmm. You're a problem now. Mm-hmm. And you're a problem on my team. You're a problem in our station, and we need to fix your problem. Mm-hmm. And if fixing that means you going somewhere else to be somebody else's problem or out of the job altogether, then there's always somebody willing to do that.
And so then what did it look like? And you're spot on, and I see that in environments, but that's like magnified 100% of the issues that you see. you're in psychosocial when it comes to construction and mining, and then also you've been support for Brittany. I'd love to hear from your point of view what it was like to support Brit. And then also separately from a lens of knowing what you do now and, you know, the experiences that you've had now within.
Yeah, look, definitely the most difficult 18 months. It was probably even more difficult than my divorce almost, because the divorce is me and I can at least work out logically how I can try and fix myself. This is me supporting somebody who's at this point in time incapable of, you know, getting out of bed. And there's no point of reasoning that's going to help this. I was completely helpless. My boss at the time when I moved stations was super supportive. It's definitely one of the best bosses. So there are good ones. I had a super good boss. One of the best men I've ever met. Like, it's just a super good human. And look, when you're helpless and you try to do everything, you try a bunch of different strategies, and then on top of that, you're trying to support your own children and Brit's children at the time, and she's pregnant with your child. It's, you know, it's pretty stressful when, from my point of view, it feels like she's like, you know, verging on suicidal at, you know, 29 weeks pregnant with our child. It's not growing. The very big moment for me was sending an email to WA Police whilst I was in hospital with Brit. I would say suicidal, or at least close to her, 29 weeks pregnant. It's just sending an email saying, can you leave her alone? This is what's happening, and this is the effect it's having on my child. My child's not growing.
We had 11 phone calls that day.
And we had 13.
13.
13 phone calls from WA Police to Brit's phone that day.
To Brit's phone?
Yeah, so that was the
13
result.
phone calls.
That was a result of the police psychiatrist signing me off without us knowing. That was how we found out, was by receiving 13 phone calls. Ended up being from... Hey,
you need to attend an interview. This is internal affairs. You've been charged with this, and this for, you know, not turning up to work, basically. Mm-hmm. Basically just you're lying and we want to prove it.
Yeah.
You know, to a person who's now at the time in hospital. Well, that was the spiral that made you. Those 13 phone calls in one day.
Intimidate.
Yeah, look, and that person, the people that were calling will say, we didn't call that many times, even though I have the call records, but there are no caller IDs because all police phones are no caller IDs. And there was multiple voicemails left as well. Look, and I sent this email basically saying, leave her alone. This is what you're doing, and what you're doing to my baby. And then lo and behold, I was charged for improperly accusing somebody of putting my baby in danger, even though it's now written on my doctor's certificate from the doctor to say that is the case and that's the stress and what it's causing.
Yeah, the obstetrician had
the obstetrician has basically written that. Because we'd already been to see this obstetrician weekly because the baby wasn't growing because of the stress, and then obviously Brit being suicidal in hospital after this. Yes, you are the cause. You are the one ringing consistently and saying this and requiring her to, you know, sending emails and requiring her to attend an interview. I'm sorry to say, you are the cause. And yeah, then I had to be forced into an interview as a witness against her.
Against?
Brit.
What?
I was forced to interview as a witness in Brit's case.
Oh, God damn. Like, holy shit.
Attend the interview or lose your job.
What can you do? What could you have done in that situation? There's literally nothing.
No power. I had a family support that was my only source of income.
Yeah.
And I'm her caregiver, basically, when I'm not on shift.
Yeah.
And the children's. So, you know, school drop-offs and cooking dinners and doing all the normal family stuff, as well as attending my job and trying to focus on my job when I'm there. Yeah. Knowing that this is going on in the background. Spent a full year of just completely ignoring my own mental health because I had no option to focus on Brit's. So,
because you're buggered if you both, you know,
at
a point of no return.
People say, oh, you're putting mayo on the story or whatever, and I'm actually downplaying it a fair bit.
Yeah, it actually doesn't matter. If you were to go into no more depth, I think even a fraction of the experience that you've had by yourself together and like pre-meeting each other and the attempt, you know, like the experience that you'd had in the workplace is enough.
Yeah.
And then it just adds on and adds on. And it's like you can see when somebody clearly has a problem with you and when they're in that position can really make not only your work life, but your life hard work, and then can impact your life going forward because it stays in you, you know?
And like when you're in that position that they're in, you can frame the story however you like.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is proof and evidence that she's avoiding work because she went to Rottnests, because she's posted some social media stories, because she's doing photography as secondary employment, even though it's at our end written on medical certificates as recommendations from doctors and psychologists. You know, what do you do to try and get yourself ready or back out into the workforce or back out into feeling mentally well enough to even attend the station that you have to go back to where your boss has rung you and said, I'm running a police station, not a rehabilitation centre.
Yeah.
Is that a welcoming environment to come back to?
No.
And there's just so much unknown in that as well. Like, I'm not there to know what's going on. So the unknown was probably the scary part as well, because I'm like, who knows who's saying what and who's my friend? Who can I trust? Like my trust issues are
definitely. The very brief conversations that me and Brit had about it, because I generally tried to avoid the topic as much as possible, was, you know, what are these people saying about me? What is this? And look, and I know from being at a station at the time that other police officers had come to me and said, this person's saying this about Brit. This person has taken photos of your Instagram stories and passed them on to bosses and stuff like that.
Because they want to.
This is really good. This is a great family. I love being here.
Yeah.
Who is this person?
I
know who you are, but
because it's like get on board, like deconstructing their whole reputation, or we'll do it to you.
It's a very weird cannibalistic way of doing things like this.
Yeah.
If I can prove that this person is a bad egg, then maybe I'll feel better about myself and my job and me still being here and being happy in my job.
Yeah.
But give it a few years and they'll be the next person
100%.
in the same.
The amount of conversations that I've had since I've left with current or ex-police officers, how did you get out? How do I change careers? How do I do this? Can you write my resume? Do you know what I mean? Current or ex-police officers I've written resumes for? Yeah.
And so, you know, like as from working in psychosocial as well, in mining and in workplaces, what is just so obvious is if you were to take all of this evidence now then to say, is this a workplace that looks like they're caring for their staff or not? So if they're trying to prove that you're going to Rottnest on your holiday, even that they don't realise is showcasing that they haven't looked after.
From a legal perspective, obviously, you know, I deal with psychosocial hazards in mining, construction and other industries, is from a legal paper perspective, compliance perspective, it's there. The systems are there. You can, you know, they brought something in where if you attend a critical incident where someone dies, you can take 72 hours off. How many people take that time off? Very little, because are you strong enough to do this job? You need to have all this time off. The systems and processes are there. You've got a psychologist to contact. There's an employee assistance program.
Health and welfare will give you
health and welfare will look after
email.
you. Will they? They gave us the wrong advice. The union gave us the wrong advice, and then told us that they gave us the right advice, even though I was the one they gave the advice to and it was wrong.
And then made it worse.
Made the situation worse. You know, and it's just the fact that they've got the system to show, and who's gonna tell them otherwise that they don't have the right system in place. Even though the proof's in the pudding with the amount of police officers that have left the job and want to leave the job, and how junior the police force is now because of that.
Yeah. And so how do you recover from that? So you know, like while it's probably still there and there's still remnants of that within your relationship, within life, like within who you are, what led you down the path now of like you're in a position where you can actually help people? Because I can imagine when people are struggling and they come to you, people have a story, and while it might not have as much depth or, you know, trauma upon trauma upon trauma upon trauma, the reality is that humans come with baggage. I call it plates, baggage, you know, like stacked on. You can be a workplace that helps you take the plates off, or you can be a workplace that makes them put them back on.
It's much like WA Police, you know, like there's a spectrum of mental health issues. I don't have any mental health issues from the job because maybe that's my low level of empathy, so I don't take other people's problem. I didn't went to the jobs and took them home and thought, oh, I'm going to cry about that person that's had struggle. Yes, it's not nice, and I can be sympathetic and help them. But then we have the same thing with blended families where there's a spectrum of issues. Is there a high conflict ex-partner? Is there a VRO in place? Do they get along? Is one partner's got a good ex that they get along with, the other one doesn't, and then that's causing tension? How's their relationship functioning as it is? What is each person bringing to the party? It's a huge spectrum of, I don't know.
Every dynamic's different.
Dynamics so different.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think we've got perspective as well. Whereas a lot of people probably don't. A lot of people think that whatever's going on in their life currently is probably the worst thing ever.
Yeah.
Whereas we, other than the work stuff, we might not have had, the worst things happen to us personally, but we've seen a lot of really bad things happen to a lot of
other people,
throughout that career. So I guess we can sort of...
Before we move on, because I think we're going to move away from the police side of things, I just want to say that, because we'll get this comment, every time Brit has put posts up about her career and what it did to her and that sort of stuff, she's always had cops reach out and say, thank you for speaking up and this is what's happened to me, blah, blah. She's always got positive feedback, but there's always a small minority that are like, oh, cops, you're bagging police out. We delete you from being friends on Facebook and Instagram, that sort of stuff. And you always get that. So, I think one post Brit put up about her experience in the police, I had to, reach out to some friends who are still police and say, I'm not posting this because I hate police officers. I don't. I admire what you do for a job because I know how bloody hard it is. And I know how thankless it is. We don't hate police officers. We don't hate police. The organisation we're certainly not fond of. And I know they're not either.
Mm. Well, and that's the thing, because, before we keep on going, is I think what is true is there are a lot of, no matter where you are or who you are, there are a lot of great people who are doing things with good intention. Yeah. And the unfortunate thing is it takes one or two people who aren't good people. You've said you've had good bosses before. I think everybody can resonate where there's been some real questionable decisions and horrible people who have shaped the things that have happened in their life in workplaces and outside of workplaces. And there's a lot of people in the police force, no doubt, who want to see change as well. And there'd be a lot of people, like you said, because there's so many nuances and so complex, and then also because there's so many different age groups that don't want to see change because it's worked for them in the past.
Yeah, look, and it's such a big organisation. So
yeah,
from having worked in multiple different places and seen different leadership styles, the problem is always leadership and the solution is always leadership.
Yeah.
But getting them on board as to who the key stakeholders and decision makers is always going to be the hard part, because everyone takes their role seriously at the higher level to the point where they take it personally. Mm-hmm. So this is not personal. It's not your business. Mm-hmm. The place isn't your business. Mm-hmm. It's it's the taxpayers.
Mm. And it goes hand in hand to say, a good leader creates other leaders and wants to see the best, in staff, in relationship. You, like you said, if I win, you lose. Mm-hmm. Yep. Whereas in a good relationship, and that's platonic, romantic, or anything, everybody wins. If you win, I win. Yep. And so it just sounds like such a, shitty things come from above, like you say, with leadership.
Shit rolls downhill.
Yep. Shit rolls downhill. Mm-hmm. And so I'm sorry and thank you to go, that you guys were willing to go into the experiences that you've had. And into so much.
Briefly.
Briefly. But also, that's what I love.
It got worse than that, by the way, but there's not really any point going any further into it.
Yeah, but what I appreciate too is that your willingness to have that conversation, because let's be real, no matter what you do, you're going to help some people and they're going to love it and they're going to resonate, and some people are going to hate on it. And that's just the way that being human, being in business works. You're not talking to them. You're talking to the ones that you can help, who because of this feel seen, heard and valued, and they're going to make a change and make way for leaders who are going to be able to impact things. So that's the reality of the conversation that we get to have. So thank you for being willing to have that. Thank you. Just digging right back in there.
No, it's good.
Making you relive shit.
It's good. It took me a good
validation.
2 years. I think it was the 2-year anniversary of my resignation that I finally got the courage to even talk about it publicly. And that's when I did the first post about that experience. And it was going to go one way or the other. And I'm very thankful that it went the positive way, where it did help a lot of people. And it ended up being very healing for me. I think it was just because it was just getting that validation that, okay, like,
I'm not the problem.
Yeah, I'm not the problem. And what I went through was really shitty. And I was thankful that I could help people. And yeah, like what you were asking before, what, has sort of shifted to get us to a point where we can help other people now. And I think that was probably one of the things that it's been a lot of growth over the last 3 and a bit years now, where I remember I was doing a mindset course with Jess Williamson. Do you know Jess Williamson? Yeah. So I was doing a mindset course, and it was a very small container of women. And it was not long after I'd left the police. And I was so scared of being seen and had so much anxiety and everything that I wouldn't even turn on my camera on the Zoom calls. And I would feel internally ill if I had to speak. So it's taken a long time, I think, but
we've had a lot of growth for Brit. In this,
we've had a lot.
I
of
bought her a
great
speaker's
coaches
course and all sorts of stuff to help with that sort of anxiety sort of things. Obviously, I've done public speaking for a long time from the moment I left high school to become a school teacher. So it's not. I can understand the anxiety behind it, but I wanted to. I don't know.
It wasn't even public speaking, though. It was just speaking in general.
Because you've been shut down. I think the body doesn't know the difference between speaking up in large audiences or speaking up to somebody in conflict. Your body doesn't differentiate, it just sees danger. And it's funny because public speaking, I have a podcast, I'm now a speaker, keynotes, facilitation. I used to shit myself when I had to do public speaking, and there was a lot of reshaping that you have to do to, and it came from, funnily enough, I went and did an audition for Australian Idol.
Oh, good on that.
Can we see that?
You won't see it because you do an audition and see if you're shit or good. And if you're not shit enough or good enough, you don't get seen by the cameras.
So you're middle ground.
Can you sing us a song off the cuff, please?
Go on.
I've got nothing.
Brit had to sing a song on a speaker's course. She made me leave the room.
But it does, and it brought back, so from that moment, I was scared of heights because I'd never felt fear. I was on the vocal ensemble in high school, and I used to get scared talking about things that I didn't know. Then I went and did this audition. I started singing. I think it was what was it? I'm trying to. Hello, it's me. And I remember it was out of body experience where I was like, I can't. What's happening? And they literally said, do you want to start again, or do you want to sing a different song?
Oh, that's a killer.
I'm like, that's not great. And I just waited 6 hours, and I just went, no, thank you, and walked out. And my sister was like, all good. And it was the first time I'd felt such anxiousness. And because I hadn't felt that before, that became something that I knew the feeling of and was scared of. So when I get afraid with keynotes, you don't know the difference between standing in front of those people auditioning and standing in front of other people. Your body doesn't know the difference. No. So I get it. Not the same.
No,
not
but
the same.
It's the same feeling. It's the same.
It's
You're
different trigger, same thing.
Yeah, I'm going to be killed here. I'm afraid for my freaking life. So not the same as what you have experienced at all, because it was daily push. You were copying it. But yeah, I resonate, and I appreciate that you've been able to do that work and sit here.
I know.
Had we
Here
not
we are,
talked
look.
about
Yeah,
that,
reflecting.
know.
It's been obviously I've seen it all because I've been external and front row seat to best of and worst of Brittany, and it's been a slow progression that you kind of don't notice, and it's just now that you say that, looking back, I'm like, holy shit, yeah, there's been a shitload of growth from Brittany crawled up in a ball in our bedroom, not moving, to being anxious about getting on camera, to now we're running a coaching business and doing podcasts.
Can we get a high five there, girlfriend?
face is too beautiful to hide behind the camera.
Yeah.
So
And turns out you were just waiting on a podcast to sponsor called The Resource, because you've got untapped resource, I've got the resource. Marry that together, perfect. And what is important to me is a company with people who are values-led, who do what they say and say what they do.
Our philosophy, how we operate, how transparent we are, is really attractive quality. So, yeah, I think where you can choose to work with the people you want to work with and your values align, to your point, work comes and goes, but you want to do it for the right reasons, I think. People yearn for belonging, and whether that's in the home environment, whether that's in sport or school or the workplace, it's that sense of belonging, and I think you walk into any space or any room, or you work for a company, and it's like the non-tangible. How do you define that? But you can feel it, right? It's a feeling more than an analytic.
For people, like why are you so interested in people?
Well, I think about that a lot, maybe more than I should, but this might be a little bit woo-woo and spiritual, but it's all impermanent. It's temporary, right? And I was thinking about it this morning, like something breaks, your iPhone breaks or your Samsung if you're one of those crazies, but they break. You can buy another one, when people break or they die, that's it.
Yeah.
You get one life.
Yeah.
One of the mantras that I picked up somewhere was bend, don't break. And I shielded my employees at the pub. I never paid myself in 9 years, but they always got paid. You just do the right thing,
And the warmth and the heart. And so what I love about this conversation, and I appreciate that we've had it, is that people know if they're going to come to work with you that you get it. You've been through it. You've had to rebuild not only yourself but as a partnership, to choose to stay with each other through not only hard times but the fuckery of hard times. When, pregnancy, I hear so often of people breaking up through pregnancy, up on site. And within the world, you often hear of people breaking up in those first, 8 to 10 weeks to 12 weeks. So hearing often of kids that are, I've got a 2-year-old and a 6-month-old and we've just broken up, because that is the biggest challenge. Mm-hmm. So you've chosen to stay with each other. You've supported each other. You somehow have put aside your own mental health and been able to help Brit, which doesn't always happen. People step away. And so what came after that? What after him staying around and you being strong enough to get yourself back to that? What did it look like then after that? What was the reshaping? What was the rebuilding?
I think we've just grown in leaps and bounds, haven't we? Like we're best friends at the best of times. Yeah. So it's luckily
Brittany's just addicted to me. That's all.
I
mean, I understand. I'm addicted to Brit. Like, we're all addicted. We're staying here for 6 hours.
I think it's Brit says this to me all the time. It's been a case of us against the world. Mm-hmm. It was at one point we were so alone. Like, yes, I was going to work and talking to people, but we were so alone that it was and I was so alone to the point it was just me functioning. Mm-hmm. And yes, I've got super supportive family, love my family, they're really good, but how do you explain this to somebody outside of what's going on? Mm-hmm. They won't understand. So yeah, it was always been us against the world, and that's not to say that we hate the world or anything. It was just nobody is coming to rescue you.
Yeah.
Quite literally.
Well, we were our own safety for the time that we needed to be. And when we were ready to start trusting again and, like you said, rebuild, we just did it together. So obviously leaving the police, we lost a lot of friends, and divorces, you lose friends. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, I wouldn't say that we had we barely had a circle around that time anyway. So
it was a mix of circumstance and by design.
Yeah.
So you didn't know who we would trust.
So then as we rebuilt, so we did it together. So we ended up making new friends together, and having new experiences together, and with the kids and all those things. And it was just,
We don't trust.
we
easily.
always knew
We don't trust.
we don't trust easily. Yeah.
Yeah. We don't. Like, in terms of letting people into our inner circle, it's very trust driven, because obviously we've done it and been burnt, and some people that we did trust or thought you could trust, even though they probably weren't that close to us, it was, the first thought from them was not, how can I help them? Or, I don't know, it mustn't be them.
Yeah, I think we're just very selective, and that's not in a way to be rude or anything like that, but we know that we are very good friends, as in we are a very good friend to we are a good friend to other people.
Yeah.
We're very loyal. We will have your back. We'll show up to support you for your new thing, and so we expect the same standard for the people that we let into our world. And if you can't reciprocate that same kind of friendship, then
it's not a friendship.
It's not a friendship.
And oftentimes that comes from a values, like a personal values-led kind of who you are. And I think you were definitely put to the test through the experiences that you'd had, with each other. And like, I know that we've spoken about it and the experience that you had and what you had together. But I'd love for you to share, Josh, and then Brit, around like your perception of like, is this gonna be forever? So speak into that.
So I guess for me, there was never a point in my mind where I was like, I'm leaving. There was never. I look back on that now and think, hang on, why didn't I think about that sort of thing? Like, why was that not a natural thought of like, this is a bit too difficult? But it never was. And I don't know if that's just my personality and I'm resilient or I'm stubborn. I don't know.
Or you are
come across as arrogant to other people, but that's no doubt the number one factor. Like, I fell in love with Brit like really, really quickly in terms of like who she was, and it came down to her ticking a whole bunch of boxes that I wrote down when I was 18, basically. And obviously in that period where I was redefining myself after divorce, Brit ticked so many of the boxes of what I wanted. So naturally it wasn't difficult for me to move into servitude mode, I guess, in terms of rescuer, I don't know. Protector, definitely protector. I'm a natural protector. Like, it just comes naturally to me. I protect family and friends really, really, really hard. So yeah, that was never an issue for me in terms of that. I forget what the question was now. I would have done that.
But so, no, you're going down that path of what we were talking about, being a natural protector. You're pregnant at the time, choosing to stay, your values, your loyalty.
Yep. Yeah, so, yeah, I guess I just fell in love with Brit so much, and she was obviously carrying my child, and we'd made this decision to have a child, and the decision wasn't on, this is going to keep us together or anything like that. That was never the reason. Like, if that was ever a reason or to have one, I would have just said, no, I'm not doing that. I was very fearful, obviously, of having another child. Imagine having another child and another divorce, and then you've got, 3 kids across 5 different houses, potentially. So that was never a thought process. It was just a natural thing, I guess, that we were always going to get married and have a kid. Brit wanted a boy, so I just kind of gave in. I was like, yeah, cool, have a boy. And then we had a girl.
Another girl.
But it's my only girl, so she's awesome.
C1.
She's a mini-me. So, yeah, that's pretty much it.
And then, so from your perception, we were talking before about, being pregnant and when there are challenges, and you could have stayed or gone, like you were going through it yourself. So what do you think, what part of you made you stay, and what part of you allowed yourself to be protected? Because I know that in the world, like, as being independent and strong and having known you've navigated shit before, that you can go down the path of like, I don't need you, or down the path of I want you. What part of you made you want to stay?
Yeah, so staying, it really came down to, it wouldn't have just been, my own life that I was taking, but my unborn child, and that obviously wouldn't be fair to her. But also, I was a mum, and my girls need me, so that was always, sort of front and center. Like, no matter how bad I was getting, and there was times where it was bad, but I could never really get over that hump of, yeah, cool, we're committing to this now. So I think my girls really were one of the biggest drivers of that choice. And then really I was lucky to have Josh. Like, I don't know how that whole scenario would have gone, being on my own. But Josh really, kept me safe as much as he could, taking all the phone calls, replying to the emails, answering the door, and just being understanding, because he very easily could have been like, fuck this, like, get over it or man up or whatever. But he just let me, really, he let me sit in it, and he sat in it with me, when I needed him to. And like he said, that's just his nature. He's a natural protector, and he has this way of making people feel safe. Mm-hmm. And he gets that comment quite often when we go out and things like that, and come across, random females who are on their own clubbing or whatever, and not in the best situations. And everyone always gravitates to Josh, and it's just a really funny thing. And they'll come up to me like, "Oh my God, your husband makes me feel so safe." And I'm like, I know.
Yep, same.
Like, he's just that kind of person. So he's probably, when we met, he had obviously done all this work that he's on himself that he's talked about. And he was very open about talking about that. And he was very open about, like, the spiritual journey that he had gone down, and how much he, like, was interested in Dr. Joe Dispenza and all the books that he had read, and his meditation, and, like, all these things that I didn't even know who Dr. Joe Dispenza was at that time, or meditation. But he's had this completely different way of thinking, and because he had done all this work on himself and taken that 2.5 years or whatever it was after divorce to rebuild, he was really secure in who he was. He knew what he wanted. He knew what his non-negotiables were. And he became a very healthy masculine. And I didn't have a whole lot of experience with healthy, secure men in my lifetime. So it was completely different for me. And having been a cop and a mom and dealt with the traumas that I had childhood and things like that, like, I unknowingly was in my masculine pretty much all the time, which I didn't even know was a thing at that time. And Josh picked it up almost straight away, and he was like, I think he's the one that introduced me to masculine and feminine energy and all that stuff. And because he was so safe and so healthy and so secure within himself, it allowed me to soften. And because of that, I think there was just a lot of connection early, but also a lot of trust. So then when all of this other stuff happened, which would only have been maybe 11 months later, it wasn't even really a choice of whether or not I could be vulnerable with him. It was just...
Here I am.
Yeah.
Here
I am.
Hold me.
Kind of, yeah.
Save me now, please.
I'm melting. But on that conversation and the masculine and feminine and the necessity that I think the world has created for, independence and women being independent, and, the gift that is, feminism that fought for our choice to be in that or not. And I think it sometimes gets misconstrued. But also the generation that we grew up in is, you create your own career. You can do it all yourself. You don't need no man, and you can have it all. And while that can be true, and I know that it's in us, and like we have that strength, I feel like it sometimes divides that actually there's a, masculine and feminine in all of us, but the necessity for masculine and feminine and what each of you brings to the table in that.
Yep.
And I've found definitely in the work that I've done and the people that I'm surrounded by is that there's choices that you make as, men and women, specifically men in the world, that, you have to do the work to get to the point where you are healthy in your masculinity, and it's not an egoic thing, and it's not a control thing, and it's not you must submit, which comes from, biblical, the submission, but also what's in there is submitted to something higher. So, you touched on masculinity and the work that you've done to get yourself to that point. You also spoke about, you said you're a natural protector, and you said that he was a natural protector. I would say that it's potentially a masculine trait to be a protector, but it's a choice for you to be a healthy protector or to be an egoic, a controlling, a possessive protector.
Correct.
And so I'd love your thoughts on all of that and what you do each day, the conversations that you have potentially, with people that you're surrounded by, with yourself, with each other, and how that comes into creating a healthy relationship.
Yep. Yeah, I think you're right there on that kind of protector energy. Like, women can be protectors as well. Mothers are natural protectors of their children. They get into that mode when they need to. In absence of masculinity as well, women get into that mode. But when they're permanently stuck there, I don't think that's healthy for them at all. Same as masculine being stuck there permanently. That's when the ego starts to arise. And I just think the key sign for healthy masculinity for me is can the females around you soften and be safe around you. If they can soften and be safe around you, then you've probably got a reasonably healthy masculinity. If it's they have to submit to your alpha energy, then it's probably not healthy, I don't think. And the things that I do is I'm a big advocate of lifelong learning. I don't know everything, and I don't. I think the older you get, the more you realise you know nothing, and you want to know. I'm just naturally inquisitive. So yes, I come from a Christian background, faith in that area, and that does shape a lot of how I see values.
Yeah.
But in terms of the masculine and feminine side of things, it's a journey to realise what is egotistical. And in that protection mode, like, it's egotistical if you're doing it because you want to be the masculine person in the room. It's non-egotistical if you want to do the protection because of the people you love in the room. They're two different things. The manosphere, or whatever you want to call it out there, is, I heavily invest myself into those sorts of things because I want to know what the extremes are. You're on the extremes of either side of that sort of thing. It helps you to find the middle ground. And I'm a bit of a natural devil's advocate. I will typically play out worst case scenarios in my head and worst case scenarios for people. That's probably one of my skill sets. When people often want to catch up for coffee or ask my advice, is I'll play devil's advocate for them and say, these decisions you can make, and this is what can happen. And this is also the good stuff that can happen. Yeah. So I think that's key to that kind of learning around what you can do to become that safe masculine person. I don't always get it right, that's for sure.
None of us do at all.
Yeah, and look, and I noticed like Brit has a bit softened over the last few years, as she suggests, but when her masculine energy comes out, it's definitely, there's more of a clash there between us when that's the case, and she knows though. Yeah. She definitely knows post discussion more than during. But quite often that's because maybe I'm pushing too hard in that area, rather than want to be the fixer as well, because that's what we do. Like, I'm a logical thinking person. I want to fix things, and some feminine energy doesn't want to hear the fixing. Yeah, they want to hear the emotion and express.
You don't need the fixing.
We have that conversation quite often where, like, I'll come to him I'll present a problem to him just to vent. Just have a whinge, and then he'll start giving me all the logical fixing ways to do it, and I'm like, I didn't ask you to fix it.
Yeah, I'm
just asking you to listen.
It's a self-realization that it's very difficult for me to sit there and not go, if only you did this, if only you did this. Like, it's just to provide advice. Like, I actively have to sit there and go, don't speak.
Yeah. Well, that's a skill in itself. And so what's interesting in the journey of relationships is you've gone through the biggest challenge of your life, and you've had to support her and Brit, and you've had to allow him to do that. So then when you started to rebuild, and you were rebuilding and being where you are now, it's a different, what's the word I'm looking for? It's a different balance that you're both going to need from each other, because you certainly don't need as much anymore in that relation, and you're meeting each other equally. How did you navigate that transition, and what was the communication like for both of you? Because I can imagine that people resonate with pregnancy, you know what I mean? You need that support and that help through pregnancy, through having birthed, regardless of who you are, or, you know, health challenges in couples and relationships where there's a necessity that one other needs that help. How do you then balance and readjust back to an equal, balanced relationship?
What you went? No, you can go first.
This one. Go on.
How do you rebalance? For me, like the big light bulb moments for me is when you start to feel in the extreme a certain way. So perfect example would be, but you don't understand how I'm feeling, or you don't understand that I've got 10,000 things going on in my brain, and I have to think about this at work and this in our business, and how's our finances looking. When you're in that extreme, you then, playing devil's advocate, you then think, well, hang on, what's all the stuff going on in her brain? Like, what's all the stuff that she's having to deal with that I have no idea about because I'm not inside of it? So yeah, I think that's the balancing moment for me, is to get out of the ego that says I'm the victim, or I'm going through this, I'm going through that, you've got no idea, to soften myself, to allow Brit to go, this is what's going on and this is how I'm feeling. And then don't take it as a personal attack, and take it as, I'm expressing this to you because I love you and I want us to reconnect. And that's obviously one big part of our coaching, is that reconnection with the couple that most people miss out on. They get so disconnected from each other that they don't know who they are, and that happens in parenthood as well. You become the parent and not the partner anymore. And yeah, that's when the disconnection, I think, starts to happen. You get into the life mode of, I'm parenting, I'm Josh the business owner, I'm Josh the parent, I'm Josh dad, I'm Josh the chef because I'm cooking dinners or whatever it is. When am I Josh the husband? Or when am I Josh that's just listening, I guess.
Yeah, I think it's just a matter of understanding and being open enough to regularly check in with each other. Much of what Josh was saying, I think, especially in dynamics where maybe the male is the sole provider, and the female might be the stay-at-home mom or have a lesser paying job or whatever the case might be, more part-time. I think there's sometimes this, this blue jobs and pink jobs kind of mentality where if the man's out working all the time, then the female, better have dinner waiting for him when he gets home, or the house must be tidy, or whatever the case might be. And whilst that's all good in theory, like, Josh is our main provider, and I work from home, and that way I can work around the kids. And as much as I try to, have the house tidy when he gets home, or have dinner at least planned, sometimes there's a lot of other things that pop up during my day, and the kids need me for this, and I've been to 3 different soccer trainings this afternoon and things like that. So I think his awareness to not jump to, why isn't all of this done? I'm doing my bit, why aren't you doing your bit? To guess, slow down and have a conversation and be open to me saying, oh, actually, sorry about that. This stuff came up instead. Because it's not like I'm saying, you work all day, why aren't we rich? Like,
yeah.
Because we've got 5 kids.
But putting it out there. No.
Yeah.
And I love what you, like, there's so much to take from that. And going back to what you were talking about with the reconnection. So what does with when you're coaching people and you say that people often skip over that, because you start living in your life and you wear lots of different hats. What does the reconnection, what's the, like, first and foremost? Let's talk about blended and the thing that you find you're talking about the most when people haven't done it. It's like, okay, they've come to you, they know they need the work, they're in a blended family. What is it first and foremost they need to do is reconnection? What does that look like?
You're talking about reconnection?
Yeah, so the core model of what we do in our coaching is that we deal with the couple first. Because at the end of the day, without the couple being solid and having a foundation for the rest of the family to lean on, then you're going to have continual resentment issues. You're going to have continual arguments. And reconnecting is the important part of that process of making sure you've got a solid foundation as a couple, because you're going to have moments where you are disconnected, where you're dysregulated, where you've had a tough day and your partner's what you perceive has had an easier day, so you're pissed off, or whatever it is, whatever the scenario is. And that can happen multiple times a day. It can happen once a month. It can happen once a week. It can happen at, when you least expect it. And giving people a system and probably permission is probably the word you would use, giving them permission to feel like that it is okay to put us first. You'll get and we've had these comments on our Instagram, no, kids come first, kid comes first. I'm like, well, yeah, the kids, if it comes to life or death, then yeah, the kids would come first. But if the kids want a house to live in that's happy, healthy, and the bills are paid, then our relationship needs to be number one, because then they get to see what a functioning and happy relationship looks like. They get to see what a mum or a wife being treated properly looks like. They get to see what real connection looks like in a relationship that isn't revolving around yelling, arguing, silence, not talking to each other, not communicating. So yeah, that's probably the core of our model, giving people that permission. Yeah, because there's always that guilt even in a normal relationship that isn't a blended family. Like there's people become parents and then they forget about each other. Not everybody, but when you give them permission to make the relationship first, doing date nights or whatever it is, then the people that have realised that can keep their relationship together. And it's around a blended family, it's way more difficult.
Yeah, and probably even more important because, as you said, the kids get to see a healthy relationship, and you've just come from a divorce. So it's highly likely the kids have seen the opposite. So, yeah, basically you can't build a stable home on an unstable foundation. So, yeah, it's basically, it comes down to making sure that you guys prioritize each other. And even in normal first marriages, first relationships, we see it all the time in like community pages and mums groups and things like that, where they don't like each other anymore. And some of the things that I read, I just think, oh my God, I would never say that about my husband. Like he's my best friend.
Why are you together? Why if you don't even like that person, let alone love them?
And I find it so sad.
It's definitely that scenario, like speaking about your partner to other people in a negative way outside of the relationship is the beginning of the end.
Yeah.
Because the moment you feel free and open to complain about your partner, their behaviour, and I'm not saying it in some circumstances is unwarranted, because obviously we've seen DVs and that sort of stuff in policing, and you should definitely seek help and speak outside. But if it's an issue that should be solved internally and you're taking it outside of the relationship, how do you expect that to function? Like if you get around your friends and you say, oh, they're not doing this, they're not doing that, and then you're expecting your partner to hang out with those people whilst you're speaking poorly about them, you're setting yourself up to fail, because why would I want to be connected to you if I'm the problem and you're telling everybody?
Yeah,
if you've
100.
got a problem, sort it out together.
Yeah, and I think that's what people speaking about relationships in general. I see people come together, and it's just through the desire not to be alone instead of the desire to be loved and be in love and be in partnership and all the good things. It's from lack and from desperation. And I see that.
It's exponentially worse, I see it in blended family situations, because you've got added logistical needs. It's much easier to have a second person when you've got kids, because you can't be in two places at once. You may be a single mum who has the kids 100% of the time, and you're the only support. So then your needs quadruple in terms of wanting to find that stable partner, and quite often it's not a stable person.
Yeah,
because you compromise.
And that's 100%. I've had this conversation with a lot of like friends around me who are divorced and single parents, and who say I'm never going to find someone because like I've got kids. And I've had the conversation with them before that statistically, our age group, they have more chance of meeting somebody because there's other people who are out of relationships who are going to find each other. And then what goes alongside that conversation is also that you both haven't necessarily healed from the things that you're hurt from. And so you enter into blended relationships where 100% you're both coming into it with the wrong intentions. And that's a big thing to ask of people, because I see parenting is really not easy when you've got both of you and you're both on the same page. It's not easy doing it solo either. And then, like you said, bringing that together when you have the intention.
We have 4 of us that are parenting same children.
Yeah.
So.
And talking to that there's 4 of you, there's 4 people in your relationship now, and how you navigate with each other and how you've conducted the conversation with the parents of your children.
So my ex and I, we get along really, really well. And that might come down to, I guess, when and how we split up. When we split, it wasn't because we were at a crisis point. We were basically, I can't speak for him, so I would say I was basically at a point where we had gotten together when I was so young. I was only 21 when we got together, and he was who I needed at that time. Like in that season of what I was going through at that time, he was great. And he is a good guy, and he's a great dad. But as we got older, we both changed as people, as you do, and we started to grow in different directions. And whilst we weren't really fighting, we weren't toxic or anything like that, it was, I guess we're mildly happy. And then resentment starts to build when you're not fully fulfilled, I guess. And I guess I started thinking, like, do I want to go, like, I was still young, I was maybe 27 or so at the time. And I was like, do I want to go the rest of my life only being mildly happy? Because then you start to feel a little bit trapped, and then, and then you might get a wandering eye. Like so many things can spiral from that point. And then with all the really toxic, horrible relationships that we would see at work, I was like, I don't ever want to get to that point. So it basically got to a point where we ended up having kind of a conversation, I guess. And it was like, I don't ever want to get to a point where we are so toxic and like high conflict that we're only staying together because of the kids and we hate each other. And the kids are seeing that. And I also don't want to get to that point and then we split up anyway. The kids have been through all of that, and now we can't even co-parent amicably because we hate each other so much. So we made the decision to split, and I would say the first year, even though it was a mostly amicable split, the first year was still quite rocky. And in hindsight, I put that down to probably grief on both sides. And in saying that, we have always said, even before the conversation of splitting up was ever on the table, we had always said, if we split up, we will always put the kids first. And we have held to that. And it's worked really great for us. We co-parent really, really well. We are flexible where we need to be. He's still in the police, so his rosters are always shopping and changing, and we try to accommodate that where we can. He babysits our youngest daughter at times that we need it. He'll have her over for sleepover so she can have sleepover with her sisters.
She calls him uncle.
She calls him uncle, and he treats her really, really nicely. She loves him. He'll interact with her at sports games or at school, and she gets all excited about that. And it's really nice for her because she gets to feel included.
She harasses him.
She does.
Yeah. But she's watched you both on how your relationship is with them. That's what kids.
Yeah, I think that's probably a really good sign of how well Brit and her ex have co-parented, is that our daughter feels safe to go there.
Yeah.
There's no animosity in terms of, can I go speak to this person because mum hates this person, because that's not the case.
Yeah.
She feels safe. He feels safe. And it's a really good example of how in an ideal world how everybody should be. Obviously, there's a lot of factors that go into whether that can be the case, but that's something for them too to be super proud of.
Yeah.
That is the case. Like, that's so rare.
Yeah.
And it's choices that you make. And like you said, you know, being somebody who steps away when it's not quite right, I think I commend everyone who is able to. I celebrate anybody who can go through a breakup, to be honest with you, because whether it's just not quite right or whether it's really bad, there's a lot of people who would stay through all of that because of the stigma and because also it feels like a failure if you step away.
Yeah.
I have a belief we're not all monogamists, and monogamy, you know, like in relationships is a really challenging thing to do and to choose one person. And a lot of the time people make the decision that because they've gotten married, they have to stay together, you know, regardless of what happens. And I think that's just not reality.
No.
In that is that you make choices, like from your experiences that you've had, the two people that are coming into those relationships or exiting the relationship, and you make choices. And so, yeah, I commend how you've gone down that path. And then, like, I don't know if you want to speak into how you've been able to navigate that, learn from each other, have conversations with each other, but you both come with different set of circumstances and understanding. And like we said, you come from, you know, like other humans who you have to navigate in the four people in your relationship. So I'd love to speak into if you're comfortable enough on how you navigated that conversation with both.
So from my divorce, so look, if I look at the way Brit went through hers, there's a lot that I wish I had done things that way. I guess it would have made life more easy for me in the first year or so after divorce, I guess. I think, what's the best way to frame it? If, you know, I made sure that post-divorce that I was as much as possible non-reactive to circumstance and non-reactive to how I responded in certain circumstances, because I could see in the future that I want things to be amicable. The kids need that. I'm not going to be this toxic male that's like, you know, you're this, you're that, get in arguments constantly about, you know, everything, end up in court, end up with VROs. This is, you know, that was pre me joining police, but in hindsight, I handled it in a way where I made sure that we could be on speaking terms.
Yep.
I'm not as close to my ex as Brit is to hers, but she's a very good mum. We have a functioning, working, co-parenting relationship. We communicate about the kids all the time. Boys love her. I know that she doesn't speak negatively about me to the kids, and I don't do the same. And we co-parent really well. Mm-hmm. So I couldn't ask for much more, to be honest. Like, I couldn't ask for the situation to be much better. Again, it goes to that scenario of like, who wants to try and win? Like, I try to have that frame every time there's a discussion about stuff. I'm not trying to win here because it's not going to be helpful anyway. If I win, she loses, she hates me. What's the point in that? The kids, like Brit said, in that scenario, the kids are what comes first. In that relationship with your ex, the kids should come first. Your egos, your hurt feelings, whatever it is that sent you down the path of a divorce comes last.
Yeah.
And quite often when kids are weaponized in those divorces, that's not the case. The ego takes over and, well, you've done this to me, so you're not seeing the kids or you're not having the kids and fight me in court for it.
Yeah.
And policing, we see it on the daily basis.
Oh, and even I see that often in mining, where there's a lot of people who are going through custody battles who haven't been able to see their kids.
Yep.
And then so how do you enter into a relationship when you've lost trust? I'd love for you to go, you know, like you talked about how from the coaching and from your perspective, talking about how your relationship comes first and the foundation so that you can give, it's like putting the life mask on. Life mask. Face mask.
Face mask?
What is it?
Oxygen mask?
Putting it's a bit like yes, I knew there was something.
Something like that.
Putting the
N95?
oxygen, on the plane. On the plane, you got to put it on yourself first, and then you put it on the kids.
Oxygen mask.
Like, where are we at? Are we in the hospital? Are we dying? Which mask are you talking about, Becky?
It's a good metaphor, eh?
Like, Becky, I don't know what you mean, but it's the putting the oxygen mask on yourself first, so that you can help.
So
your
you're functioning.
kids. Yeah, so that you're functioning.
Yeah.
However, then you will, without a doubt, as a parent, jump in front of a moving bus that's going 110 kilometres an hour. Both of you would do that for your kids. That's not going to disappear anywhere. But if you want to fill from an empty cup, sure, don't give back to each other.
Exactly right.
Yeah.
That's where people misconstrue our idea of, the couple first. Oh, so the kids aren't important. No, that's the reason is because the kids are super important as to why we're first. Because again, you can't give out of an empty cup.
Yeah.
You can't provide support to somebody when you've got no foundation of your own.
Yeah.
If you're in a relationship where you're arguing all the time, kids pick up on it. They subconsciously see it. They then begin to realise, or they begin to think, this is a normal type of relationship. Because I used to see it as a school teacher. You'd have kids come to school and they behave in a certain way because that's the behaviour at home.
Yeah.
You'd see it in policing all the time. I think probably domestic violence is probably a good reference point here in terms of me and Brit together had attended a ton of domestic violence jobs. Like literally domestic violence and mental health is what you do every day.
Yeah.
It's the two main jobs you attend as a police officer, and it's a cycle of. You can often we saw people get out of domestic violence relationships to end up back in one again with somebody else, because that is the safety of how they feel a relationship should look like, because they've probably never had a healthy one.
Yeah.
Or that's what they've grown up in.
Or that's what they've grown up in. And they're trauma bonding.
Yeah, trauma bonding. And I think having also seen it and had, within the family and stuff like that, is that it becomes all that you know. So you actually don't know. All you know is chaos. So you actually don't know calm, and calm feels foreign to you and actually feels more scary than chaos.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
And you think that all the negative and toxic behaviors is how someone shows love.
Yeah.
And that's what you start to look for, because that person treats me poorly, that means they love me. That
Yeah.
person yells at me, that's because they love me so much.
Yeah,
It's just
100%.
Yeah, it's just they love me. And look enough, I won't name the influencer, but I saw him saying to people that, if you're in a domestic violence relationship and you stay, it's your fault.
Yeah.
Like, mate, you don't have kids, you've probably never been married, you've got no idea what you're talking about. Not everyone can leave.
Yeah.
Not everyone has the means to leave.
Well,
Not everyone has the support.
No.
Where do you go? Like, the amount of times we would get people out of domestic violence relationship, get them into, if you were lucky, a woman's refuge for the night, if one was available. Mm-hmm. One night. Then where do they go?
Yeah.
They go back to the home with their kids that they just escaped from for one night of peace.
Yeah.
And quite possibly you've put them in a situation where it's now made it worse because you've become involved.
Yeah.
You're attending this job as a police officer to be the peacemaker,
Yeah.
issue people with temporary restraining orders, stay away from each other for 24, 48, 72 hours,
Yeah.
for them to end up back in the same situation again that you attend the next day.
It's
Yeah.
escalated.
It's escalated. It's now worse. The amount of times we would have attended a job where, thank you for helping us, you're the best, and then the next day turning up to the same job. Get the fuck off my lawn. I didn't ask you to come here, blah, blah, blah. And that's not necessarily abuse of us. That's coming from, I'm now going to get bashed because of this.
Yeah, well, because that's the reality as well. And I suppose as well, it's so interesting with the coaching, or where you end up going is, like you said, you bring all of those experience, so you understand and you can kind of not diagnose, because you're not going into being psychologists or counsellors or anything like that. But like you said, you want to be with someone who understands what's been going on, and not to say that the relationships that you're helping or going into come out of domestic violent relationships, but a lot of the time you see the progression of that within, the jobs that you've done previously. And we all know, you would know more than some of what good looks like and what really fucking bad looks like.
Yeah, we know, Brit more so than me, 10 years versus my 3, but you know more about what the worst of the worst is than anybody can imagine. Like, if you're in a reasonably functioning life and world, you are oblivious to what goes on to the worst 1%. Like
Yeah.
it is, you couldn't explain to somebody how bad it actually is for some,
Yeah.
for some people.
Yeah.
With no means of getting out or changing the cycle. Very little government support, very little opportunity to change their life.
And you get told as well by the person that you're in that relationship with that you have nowhere to go, nobody loves you, nobody likes you, you're a terrible mother, you're a terrible father,
They're
so
broken.
And some people still have this misconception that domestic violence means violence.
Yeah.
It doesn't.
No.
mean
There's so
violence.
many
There's
different
financial,
forms.
there's emotional abuse, there's
Coercive
coercive control, there's
Yeah.
all this stuff that goes into demeaning the person to the point where they, like you said, they don't feel capable of leaving. They
Yeah.
don't feel like they can detach themselves from this situation because, yes, they are my abusive person, but they're also my safe person.
Yeah, because they will also provide that safety as well. So they'll beat the shit out of you, emotionally abuse you, not like coinciding with each other, sometimes or both.
Yep.
Or they'll emotionally manipulate you and then tell you that you are amazing, that they love you, as well as tell you that you're shit. So it's, I get.
It's a scale of, it's a gradual scale that they get people from. So they start off doing something small, and it slowly increases in extremity, I guess.
It's
To the point where
desensitized.
they've broken that person down.
Yeah.
So it's not like they've just walked into a relationship and started beating on someone. They've broken that person down from day one,
Yeah.
where they've, just spoken down to them and made them feel horrible about themselves, and they've slowly isolated themselves from, isolated their partner from their family and their friends and any kind of healthy support, and then
Family
it
isolation
continues.
is a massive part of that, and it's worse in blended families as well because not in domestic violence as such, but that isolation from family.
Well, and because they've come from, and there's so much stigma around it. Like if you're in a relationship like that and you get told, by society that why didn't you leave? And then you finally do leave. And then you're a single parent, and then the stigma around that. So,
And then people choose sides.
Yeah.
They don't understand the full scenario on, they don't understand the 6 months to a year of conversations that went on behind closed doors. They see
Yeah.
the moment that it broke.
yeah,
They don't see anything outside of that.
yeah,
Even when Brit's relationship ended, it was, it must have been Brit, she's a bitch.
yeah,
Because she's
I
tough.
never
She's
saw-
tough
yeah.
exterior, and it's not to say it's his fault. It's just that outside of the scenario of the relationship, it goes back into why you don't let people inside your circle. Is you've seen the outside result. You've not seen everything that's been the lead up. The camel that broke the straw's back is yes what you see. It is not. And when everyone wants to blame somebody and blame something,
Yeah.
and it's the relationship is two people.
yeah.
Well, and the fix is two people at the end of the day. And it might sound a bit rich coming from two people that have been divorced, who didn't fix their relationships, but
Learn from it.
you learn from it and you grow. And,
Yeah.
Because what is fixing? Like
And maybe it didn't need to be fixed. Maybe
Yeah.
sometimes you're just not right for each other.
yeah, and that's just what I put it down to is I know Brit and her ex really well now. Like, I'm pretty good friends with Brit's ex, and I can tell from 1 second with them that they weren't right for each other.
Yeah.
But that's the circumstance under which I know them now.
Yeah.
I don't know Brit from when she met him.
Yeah.
So she was obviously a different person. Like she said, she that was the person she needed at the time. The same goes for me when I met my ex.
Yeah.
People grow and change and learn from their circumstances. And 50% divorce rate, second marriage is at a 70% divorce rate. We don't. That's what we're about. We don't want that second divorce.
Yeah.
And divorces are not good on kids
Yeah.
at the end of the day.
And that's at the end of the day, everybody's got that interest and you've got to look after. Like you say, I love that the foundation is yourself, because also the foundation within that relationship is your foundation is you, your foundation is you, your foundation is together, and then it's like it's a ripple effect that gets out.
Correct.
And it's, I can imagine. So I'm going to ask you what it is that you do individually to come together. But then also something that comes to mind with this is a lot of people, when it talks about relationships, people talk about, back in my day, or, like our grandparents or our parents stayed together, or our great grandparents, if it wasn't for them staying together, we wouldn't be here. And people forget what happened in relationships back then, like what we were
What
talking
happened behind
about.
closed doors? There was no social
And
media.
exactly, lack of
There was no
autonomy in
such thing as
relationships.
domestic
Women
violence.
weren't
In
working.
No.
police weren't attending domestic violence.
No,
they were attending and saying, "Get back in your house."
Yeah, exactly.
To the
That happened
female.
with my grandma. Like that, she got the shit kicked out of
The
her.
question would have been, "What did you do wrong?"
Yes, exactly. And so the world has completely changed now. And so I think the pressure that people put on relationships is, everybody feels so different about it. And I would say, I think coming to terms with that every person is doing their best. And everybody's best looks different and everybody looks different.
Nobody gets married to get divorced.
No.
Nobody enters a marriage to go, can't wait to get divorced. So nobody has the intention. People make decisions that they regret, or make decisions that they wish they hadn't made, or they wish they hadn't even got in the relationship, some people. We have the hindsight of we have 4 beautiful children. That I have no regrets about the relationship because I wouldn't have my 2 amazing boys if it wasn't for that. So no regrets there.
Yeah. And it's like a season, a reason, or a lifetime. And the season is you got to have those beautiful children together. I think people do tend to have that perspective a little bit with that. And then, so how then, what is it that you bring to the, you've made choices to make sure of where you are now, and you've made choices to be where you are now and to come together. How do you make those choices every day, knowing that sometimes actually, it's harder to make the hard choices and to do the things that you need to do than it is to, make the easy ones. And, what is it? Harder life, easy later. Easy now, harder later.
Yeah, hard now, easy later.
Yeah, well, we had all the hard conversations, which I think a lot of people, it's very evident that a lot of people either avoid it or they just don't know what conversation they should have had. So early day conversations that should be had are things around, finances, parenting styles, discipline,
Roles and responsibilities.
Rules,
Boundaries.
and a lot of people just kind of, it'll figure itself out. And then they get a year or 2 down the track and they're resentful because they're being expected to perform in a role and they don't even know what the rules are as a stepmom, or they're doing things that they weren't told were going to be part of the relationship, or I have to go pick his kids up from school and I don't want to, just things like that. And it just, that could have been solved with a simple conversation. And we have conversations in a normal relationship when you're getting together of, what's the future look like for you and things like that.
Some people.
Yeah.
You should. Most mature people have these kind of conversations. So it's like, why aren't you having these conversations? And that's something that we pretty much laid out. And we give people a framework to be able to have those conversations. And again, communication skills and learning to hear some things that you might not like, but they're necessary.
To have the conversation.
And you need to not be defensive about it. It's not a personal attack on you. This is what is coming up for me, and we need to work through this in order to, progress together.
Yeah, that is the point where the kids are more important prior to getting into that relationship, because the kids didn't ask to be in a divorced, separated relationship, and they certainly didn't ask to be in a new family. So structure it and try and have those conversations early before you bring your kids into this situation.
Yeah.
You've got to be able to trust that person and be a team together, because it will fall apart very, very quickly. Prime example, we get things in our messages all the time, but one of the questions we ask people, what's going on in your blended family? And some of the responses are like, I hate my stepson.
Yeah.
That's
that's
you
a
might,
good-
but why?
Yeah.
And the reason often is because I hate the way that my partner parents their kid.
Yeah.
They don't get told off, or they don't have boundaries for them.
Yeah.
We're parenting our children differently, or my partner favours their children and gives this to them and then says, no, you can't use that, belongs to the other kids. Like those sort of even might seem minute and small things turn into ginormous things.
Yeah.
But if you'd had a simple conversation around what's your expectations and discipline, what's your expectations and boundaries in the home, what role are you playing, who's talking to each other's children, who has to talk to the ex about roles and responsibilities and
Yeah.
updates with the children and, who's dropping off stuff and picking up things.
Yeah.
And what are you okay with and what are you not okay with?
Yeah.
And if you're not okay with things, it's okay to decide, actually, maybe this relationship isn't for me.
Yeah.
Like, maybe we shouldn't blend our families. Like, it's okay to come to that realization. I think people are so scared of that because they've just come from, for lack of a better term, a failed relationship.
Yeah, I guess one of our issues that we have is that quite often we're having calls and conversations with one person out of the partner. It's very hard for them to get the other one on board. At the end of the day, it's very hard to operate within a couples program when you can't get the couple on board. So then where does that leave somebody? That's something we've been battling with. Like, where does that leave that person that feels lost now because I can't get mine? We've got these issues, but either they don't agree and don't think there's an issue or they think I'm the issue. Like, where does that leave that person? So I've just gone through and kind of built a program for that person that is individual support for that one-on-one style coaching where there's opportunities for them to bring their partner in throughout the program where they can, soft reach out to the person, can we do some work together? And whether that happens or not at different stages or that happens at all, it might end up leading them down the path of this relationship's not right for me. And I'm actually okay with I'm not in the business of breaking people up, but I'm also not in the business of keeping people together that shouldn't be together. If your partner's not invested in your blended family, and you don't have ties to them with your own children together, then you've probably made a bad decision to be together in the first place because you didn't ask the right questions. And that's not blaming an individual or victim blaming. It's just a case of there's no support and education around there about what you should ask. We've seen all the red flags in the world by policing and by doing this coaching, that there's certain questions you could ask before, but it's too late once you're already in it. So we want to be able to support you and give you a framework where you can at least try and build your own calmness in what is potentially reasonably chaotic.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the hope being that if, you as an individual go first and start working on certain things, that the partner will see the changes and they'll be more willing to, jump on board as well.
Come on board the ride with you.
Yeah.
And so then talking about the program, what is it that you think we haven't necessarily touched on? I know that you've talked about the pillars of what that looks like and communication.
I guess it's just the actual framework that we're delivering. Do you want to talk about that? Or do you want me to do it?
You can talk about it.
I knew you were going to say that. So our framework for the coaching for the couple is built on, it's an acronym of HOME. 4 stages, 4 pillars. Home, honesty being the first one, so with the H. And honesty is about really diving deep into the core issues individually and as a couple that it's going on. What personality types do you have? What's your love languages? All these things that affect you as an individual, that define who you are an individual. So what is each person actually bringing to this relationship that is either in alignment with each other or causing the friction? You can't work on anything unless you've had that honest conversation with yourself and with your partner about what's actually going on. And that includes parenting styles and discipline, all that sort of stuff.
Bringing awareness to
massive awareness
any issues,
pillar.
resentment.
There's a bit of deep work there, sort of thing. Like it'll surface the resentment you potentially didn't know you were holding. And then we get into the second phase, which is ownership, where you start to actually take ownership of your own issues and your issues as a couple, to try and work on them and try and find at least a teamwork framework. So building that team, and we agree on this and we agree on that. We create agreements around, yes, we've got these issues, let's do this instead, we agree. And then third phase is building momentum, so M for momentum. And that is putting in place all of your boundaries, rules and routines. Roles, so who's doing what, where and when, because every dynamic is different. Some dynamics have the mum is dealing with the ex regardless. Some, it's the partners only talk to their exes. So like for us, for example, Brit communicates with her ex and I communicate with mine. It's very rare that it needs to be. The only communication I get from Brit's ex is reels that he sends me because we have a pretty similar way of thinking.
Yep.
No, you guys get along. If somebody sends you a reel, that's like a connection.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, I'm sorry.
We're real mates.
Only real friends
I
and
said,
reels,
yeah,
right?
only real
We've
friends.
come a long way.
No doubt.
So that's the momentum portion of it. And then the E is about ecosystem. So it's building that core ecosystem that is how your foundation of your family is going to run. And also having repair in that process, because you're never going to be perfect. You are going to have moments where you argue, fight, for want of a better word, have disagreement, aren't in alignment, and the ecosystem helps you come back to each other, reconnect, come back to the things that you've agreed upon about how you are going to structure and function within your family, because you've got it written down and you've agreed on it and you've done the work together. So then if you're operating outside of your agreed values, your agreed vision for your family and your agreed mission, then you better sort that out. And it really can bring people to breaking point, I think, where they realise this is going to work with some hard work, or this person isn't the right one for me, and save myself the heartache of working on this for 10 years for the other person to be like, fuck you.
Yeah.
I don't want to do that.
Yeah. So,
I think sorry, go ahead.
no, you go.
I think it's also important, I guess, probably to note that the uneven investment portion of it, where just because the partner might not be on board doesn't mean that they don't see the issues or that they think you're the problem or anything like that. It can sometimes come from a position of fear. They've had threats from their ex that if they push back, that she'll take the kids, or by agreeing with the partner on certain rules that the kids are going to hate you. Things like that come up and are very, very real for some people. So I think, and that's one of the things that we touch on in the program as well, is just having that understanding that they might have their own reasons, but also this is how you work together to eventually and hopefully come together as a team to get on the same page.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because quite often, and I know this from my experiences, I'm the conflict avoider, I guess. Maybe I like to keep the peace rather than if someone oversteps my boundaries and it's like, oh, I don't want to have that argument or keep the peace. Like that definitely built some resentment at Brit's point, because she saw that as me not sticking up for her or sticking up for our internal environment. And it's having those conversations and realizations that is the key to that. Because even we've had a couple recently that the ex-partner, and he is the conflict avoider, kind of like me, and is trying to keep the peace, but to the point now where the ex has seen that as a weakness and now is using that to target the new partner and use it against her, to be like making her feel like she's horrible and using the kids against her and that sort of stuff. And it's a perceived lack of boundary and weakness has created a further issue. Yeah, okay. That could have been avoided with a firm conversation and teamwork to put those boundaries in place.
And so, like people pleaser, reformed people pleaser, putting boundaries in place as a human without relationships and without kids is a challenging thing to do. And especially when people can see what your weaknesses are, and being just using that language, because I think people resonate with it, because it comes as the person who is people pleasing, it comes with an intention that you love people. I remember getting to the point with myself realizing that if it comes with resentment, it's actually a bit manipulative. So if it goes down the path of that, where you're using that against people, or it's like, it can be, if you're not aware of how you are, how you show up in relationships, anything can be misconstrued, and anything can be 100%. So it's about, all of it is about communication. It's about self-awareness. It's about having boundaries with yourself. I think in this conversation, it all sounds like it just all comes back to knowing yourself, being able to communicate what it is that you like, what you don't like, and what's going to be best for you, the kids involved, and the relationship as a whole. Or for you, the relationship, the kids, and then everybody who's involved in that, because there's so many of you coming into it. And so part of that, there's things that you can control and there's things that you can't control. I think we've had such a deep conversation, and, I would love to continue with it, but that's one thing before we kind of finish up. how do you help people navigate the things that they can't control? And some of the time that's, you know, a partner or even kids. The reality is sometimes kids come with, you know, neurodivergence. They come with behavioural challenges. They come with resentment that's built, you know, trauma that comes from the divorce. So how do you navigate the conversations of things that just literally feel like that the person who's come to you, they can't control those things?
There you go.
Depending on what the issue is, sometimes it comes down to acceptance, but a lot of the time, as we were saying before, it comes down to just being a team. And yes, you can't control what the ex is doing, what she's saying or he's saying, you know, what they're telling the kids at their house. But what you can control is, one, how you react, and two, what happened inside your home. And that, again, comes down to having hard conversations with your new partner about how you want your home to feel, what you want it to look like, what rules you need to have in place for your home to function, and holding that, because when you slip, the kids see the opportunity to, you know,
dig that off, whether it's purpose or not.
start exploiting that gap. And I think especially as the bio parent in the situation, everything kind of has to come from you with your own children, and then the step parent is the one to back them up, essentially. So
it's a roles and responsibility conversation.
Exactly. Like if I want Josh's kids to start emptying the dishwasher every day after school, I'm not going to be the one to say, hey, start emptying the dishwasher every day after school. That's for Josh to go and say to them, your new job is to empty the dishwasher after school. If Brittany says to empty the dishwasher after school and I'm not here, I expect you to respond to her the same way you would respond to me if I was here.
Yeah.
And that conversation comes up fairly often, not that particular one.
But it comes down to setting expectations, you know, and we have these expectations of our kids that regardless of that scenario, that they will act with other adults in the same way that they act with us if we weren't there. So at school, coaches, if they act outside of our family values and how we expect them to, you know, there's obviously a certain level of like malleability there in that space. But it's if you are, you know, your behaviour isn't matching how you would behave with me, then there's a bit of a problem. Mm-hmm. We don't really have those issues in terms of like our kids. We're very lucky. Our kids are very well behaved and very well parented by all four parents. That's tooting my own horn, but to the extent that they're well behaved, so we don't have a huge amount of behavioural issues, and you know we don't have those. You know, we don't have autism and all that sort of stuff, all those like other issues that some people have that would be incredibly difficult to deal with. Yeah, so we're pretty lucky in that space.
Like I said, it comes down to, like, it starts with the bio parent and it goes, you know, it's a downward stream from that. But, you know, if you're having issues, I don't know, something we get quite often is that the ex talks poorly about the new step parent to the kids, and then when the kids come home, they're really disrespectful to the step parent. And it's like, yeah, okay, that's really unfair for the kids, but the solution to that is the bio parent saying, whatever happens over there, but we don't speak like that in this house. You don't speak about so-and-so like that. And
like, mum or dad says, I don't have to listen to you. I'm like, well, sorry, you're in this house and you do, because that's the expectation. Like, you're the child, we're the adults, you know, and if it's coming from the other parent in a case of, you know, they're concerned for their kids or whatever, and it's from a genuine thing, that's different. But if it's just a toxic way of like influencing control in your household, you've allowed that to happen by not addressing it with the kids when they're in your house.
it's literally like a workplace, right? People want structure or need structure often, and they need not rules. Like because I'm not a rule follower. Sometimes you give me a rule and I'm like, how can I break it?
ADHD.
How can I rebel? Yeah, 100%. But often in those environments, if you're clear about what is acceptable, what is not, it's actually just a given. There's no room to move. I think as well. I haven't parented myself at all. I've watched my friends and family parent, and like you said, without challenges that come with health issues or neurodivergence or, having kids that aren't as able as others, let's say you don't have that, it is often the thing that I see the most is, giving the kids guidance because they want that. And they look
you said
to
it,
you
you
for
hit the
that.
nail on the head. They thrive on structure. Kids thrive on structure. Like 10 years as a school teacher, if you don't provide structure, kids will hang off the rails and do whatever they want.
Yeah.
And the structure comes from boundaries.
Yeah.
I don't, gentle parenting or whatever it is, which gets misconstrued as well. To have these adult conversations with children. No, their brains aren't developed yet to do that. It's a biological issue. So your job is to protect them, and that is by setting boundaries for them. You don't just let your kids run across the road because, we don't have boundaries in our house. Well, you do, because your kids are going to get run over otherwise.
Yeah.
So it's super important to have those boundaries and structure for your kids so that they know what to expect. If they don't know what to expect, how can you expect to tell them off or keep them safe?
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think everyone wants this magical answer to how do we control things we can't control. And there isn't a magical answer. The unfortunate answer is that you just deal with what you can, control what you can control, and the only thing you can control is the things that are happening in your own house,
in your own relationship.
Yeah.
And you have to be that team, otherwise you're not controlling anything. It's controlling you.
Exactly. And then it's how you react to the uncontrollable, which is
your reaction is the most important.
Yeah. I love that. I love this. So I feel ready now to enter into a blended. No.
We love it, but I don't recommend it.
No, not at all. But I think it's interesting having the conversation because the world is. I'm fascinated by humans. I'm fascinated by the world of what is. The people in it that are different, have had different experience to myself. And I know that this will resonate with a lot of people. And we're lucky to have two of you in the chair today because I know that when I have one guest, I get so much feedback. And so having both of you and then your relationship in that, I'm very thankful and grateful that you've given me your time today and given the person who's listening the ability to see themselves in you guys, one of you. I would love to finish off by asking you some of the, what comes to mind if I ask you the question of what is one thing that you wish that you knew earlier personally and then within your relationship?
Yeah, so the one thing I wish I knew earlier was that who you marry is not the most important decision you make. Who you have kids with is the most important decision you make because you're tied to that person forever. Mm-hmm. And like I said, no regrets on having my kids. I love my kids. But, who you marry is super important. But who you have kids with is equally, if not, it's more important at the end of the day because kids didn't ask to be here. Mm-hmm. So that's probably one thing. Look in the way, and I've seen it framed somewhere like this before, where if you're going to have children with someone, imagine that you died, would you be comfortable with that person raising your children? That's not coming from me. That's from another podcast I think I've seen. But we've talked about this before.
You heard it here first.
No, it's funny. I saw it on a podcast once, but me and Brit have had this conversation.
Sure, stop saying
Well, I've had this conversation before with my superannuation guy around wills and stuff. Prior to that, and that was kind of a big moment for me. I was like, that's a really good point. What am I leaving to my children?
Yeah.
What legacy am I leaving in terms of the partner I chose to marry?
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah, and it doesn't mean that you have picked someone that's super toxic or anything like that. It just means that would you be happy with that person parenting your children?
Oh, spot on. Here? I think that question is.
Yeah, and if I look at my ex, I'd be very happy that she's parenting my children if I wasn't here, because I know they'd be safe, and she
Yeah.
would love them to bits, does love them to bits, and would look after them. So that's not an issue.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and if I'm in a relationship with Brit's ex, it would be the same thing. But the girls would be safe. To the point where I would leave my daughter, where I do leave my daughter with him.
Yeah. I love that advice that you've given us there, Josh. I know that, there is probably a lot of things when with the life that you've been handed and the life that you've navigated as a woman, as a mother, as a entering in from being a girl into a woman, to being a daughter, to being now a coach and a partner, and all of those kind of things, that has many things that have kind of shaped you. Do you remember any advice that you've gotten from somebody that kind of sticks around in your mind that you pull from each day, either in relationship, either personally,
Probably
Hey?
Probably me.
There's like the guru, Josh.
Brit's had to do most of it herself in our life.
Yeah, I mean, the saying that goes that no one's coming to save you. Whilst in my current relationship, that's false, because Josh will always be there. I think that does tie into a lot of things that sort of have happened through my life, where I very easily could have gone one way or the other. I come from a family of a lot of historical addiction, and I very easily could have fallen down that same path, but I went the other way, and I've always put myself first, and I've always backed myself, and I think a lot of people don't tend to do that. They need some kind of outside validation or someone else cheering for them. And for a lot of time, I didn't have anyone cheering for me. So basically back yourself, because no one's coming to save you. And if there's things you want to do that are big and scary, they're big and scary because of the right things that you're meant to be doing. Mm-hmm. So give it a crack and, make something of yourself.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
I love that. Is there anything that you'd like to finish on when it comes to even speaking to the couples that you work with, or somebody who might be challenged at the moment, who is needing kind of a safe place or some advice? Is there anything that you'd like to finish on?
Yeah, I think I'd like to say that, blended families can be a very isolating environment because of so many varying circumstances around toxicities from previous relationships. Families can be nasty, all that sort of stuff. And there is support out there, which is what we want to be. We did it alone, and I think I'm thankful. I have a lot of gratitude for the fact that we got through the difficult moments, and we've come to this place of where we feel confident, capable in our own ability to help other people. And I think that if you feel like you're alone, then you can isolate yourself pretty easily and be alone. It's very easy to do that. Sometimes that's beneficial for a time to isolate yourself, but you can't live like that forever. So reaching out and building a community is what we want.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Blended doesn't mean broken.
Yeah.
We've living proof that, blended families can be beautiful and they can thrive and they can be healthy. And we'd love to help as many other families like ours as much as we can to, get to either where we are, as close to that as possible, really.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Reach out.
Yeah, and so how do they do that? So how can somebody reach out to you guys, or what's the best way? What's the best way for them to reach out to you? And then also, if somebody is in a blended relationship where the person isn't necessarily interested either, what's the best thing for them to do?
Yeah, cool. So they can reach out to us on Instagram. Our Instagram is Brit and Josh _. Yeah. And you can find more information about the Blended Blueprint or this new course that doesn't quite have a name yet that Josh has just finished creating.
Yeah, it'll be live in a few weeks.
Yep, on our website, and that's www.blended.com, and that's spelled BLND3D.com.
Okay, wonderful.
Yeah.
What a bloody solid chat. What an amazing chat. I know that would have helped somebody. Like I said, I appreciate what you've been through to get yourself to this point, the fact that you're choosing to help people instead of be
Living a cruisy life.
yeah, not even living a cruisy life, but choosing not to help others through the pain that you've experienced. And I think I commend people who do that. They're my people. And also that you are within integrity doing that with each other. And I love that you get to hold each other accountable to.
Well, just doing the coaching holds us accountable to each other.
Yeah.
It's been a lot of growth for us as a couple by even creating what we have created at the end of the day. And
so many times we've said, we can't break up because we'll look like a failure.
Yeah. But also, do you know what? I think you would so it's not going to happen. But also, that is hard being a couple that puts, yourself out there. And I can imagine you've had a conversation over that previously, like you just said.
we're putting our relationship on the line.
Yeah, 100%.
End of the day.
And also, I can imagine that, some people might be hoping that it doesn't necessarily work out and you've got to work on it even harder. And that's just the world that we live in. And I feel like that's what people might resonate with is people are looking for you guys to fail, and it's even more reason to not and to work on it.
It was definitely one of our hesitations about doing it in the first place was what are people going to think sort of thing. And it's like we may come across like we don't care what people think, but we definitely
Everyone cares what people think.
Yeah,
everyone does.
Yeah.
But my late diagnosis of rejection sensitivity dysphoria is not helping at all.
Yeah, well, how beautiful. Because also, who knows where we'll be in 50 years. I know that definitely there'll be multiple people who will be helped in relationships and the kids that are going to be saved through that, not having to witness it. Thank you so much for making time. What a bloody solid chat.
Yeah, it was great.
Appreciate
I could do it
guys.
again and do it in a completely different way.
Yeah, no doubt. Yeah. Okay, maybe we will. But we'll leave it there for now. I appreciate you guys making time. Thank you all for joining the Resource Podcast. I know that you would have taken a lot away from this. And if there's something that's resonated with either yourself or somebody else and you think that this can help them in relationship, or there's somebody that comes to mind that you think you need to have a conversation with, do it. Get the help from Brit and Josh, but also reach out, have a conversation with myself, like, subscribe, share this with somebody who needs it. And thank you for joining us today. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
If you've enjoyed today's episode, you've taken something away, maybe for yourself or somebody else, I would love for you to share and I'd love to hear from you. We are always keen on having conversations that people want to have and tackling those really hard subjects. So reach out. I'd love to hear from you. Thank you for joining me on the Resource Podcast, where we are making a ripple effect and making massive waves.